stands, one nation, under God, liberty and justice for all.
Delay there.
Vice Mayor Lempress?
Present.
Mayor Lewis?
Yes, thank you. We have all are here. We have a presentation from our librarians on our summer learning report. So, take the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Council and Council members. I have two quick announcements, or two items that are related. I'm here to introduce our newest senior librarian. Her name is Rebecca Ford, and this is only her second day. And I want her to come up here and just do a quick introduction right before the summer learning presentation.
Yep, good evening. I'm Rebecca Forth. As Francisco said, it's my second day. I'm very excited to be here. I look forward to meeting each of you individually and carrying on the great relationship that the library has had with you all. I come from Sonoma County Library, and just very pleased to be here. So I'd hand out cards, but I don't have them yet, so please don't be a stranger. You know where I am. And thank you for having us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we do have a quick video to show, and I'll make some really quick high-level remarks right after the video.
You know, growing up in this area, I know that test scores, reading levels are typically lower, especially with the surrounding areas. So, I wanted to do something that might help change.
We really looked for ways to embed literacy in fun activities like science experiments or other inquiry-based activities where kids are working in teams and they're asking questions and they're focused on the process of learning rather than the product.
We gotta do activities, fun. My favorite thing about this campus, we do yoga. I like this camp so much.
I think this is a great opportunity for them to improve their reading level, and I love the programs that they have here, especially for the English learners, students.
Working with the kid camps, you really get to see the kids. You read to them, they get really excited.
We did assessments with the children before and after. None of the children experienced any learning loss according to our assessment, so 100% at least retained what they left school with, which is huge. We're really, really proud of that. Libraries have typically nourished minds. Now we are also in the business and the practice of nourishing bodies. San Mateo County Library is the first library to become a federal meals sponsor in the state.
It's pretty good.
We're excited about the opportunity to connect more families and more children to free, nutritious meals in areas of need. You can't learn if you're hungry, and we feel a strong commitment to make sure that people's needs are being met so that they can learn.
That was it. Thank you. So some really quick highlights. The Inspiration for Summer Learning program builds on the county visions for the big lift that 80% of youth will read at the all grade level by 2020. We had a camp here in Atherton. We also had camps in La Honda, South City, as well. This year coming up, though, we're going to have some new changes. We have teamed up with Bell, which is an educational organization that provides out-of-school time programming and support to offer camp for children entering kindergarten and first grade. So we're going to be having younger kids this year. We also have a grant with Google that we received, so we'll have a lot of programming, including the arts, technology, and we'll continue with the summer meals. Most people think Atherton is fairly affluent, but we have a neighbor just to the west here, Fair Oaks and North Fair Oaks in particular. And just to kind of give you an idea, we gave out 900 meals in 8 weeks, which was actually better than East Palo Alto. And part of it is because we're a welcoming library. We have a beautiful garden outside where kids can eat their meals with their family members. And a lot of people were just coming in for their regular preschool story time or their, reading every week, visiting the library, and they saw healthy meals with sometimes an apple with a sandwich, and they stayed. And they enjoyed the great outdoors and great books. I'm here to answer any questions. There was also Measure A funding that helped make this a possibility. A lot of what our administration does is they leverage all what we have in terms of books and staffing, and they match it with grants from the state. And we were able to employ 1,500 youth, so they could come in and work part-time during the summer and interact with children, learn new skills, and it was a win-win for everybody. Can't wait for the new library. We'll continue it then, and we'll have even better facilities. But that was it. That's my report. I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
Does anyone have a question for Francisco? Thank you very much. Just a quick question. How is the summer camp going to be marketed this year for Appleton? How will we let the Fair Oaks neighborhood and the rest of Appleton youth know about it?
Yeah, so we are partnering. There's actually a private camp that's going to be nearby as well, and they're pledged 10 scholarships, full scholarships. So we're trying to get the neediest children who are coming in where there isn't maybe a lot of reading at home, because we kind of want to elevate them in that 8-week period. So we're reaching out to Head Start, we're reaching out to the preschools to select children that will be eligible, that will be able to make it the 8 weeks. A lot of families take vacation during that time. A lot of families, their kids are doing quite well, or they're already going to a camp. So we are having conversations with different stakeholders, and definitely we want to give opportunities to anybody, not just a certain particular group. But we're reaching out, and we actually just had a meeting with Fair Oaks School, and they have a pre-K and a TK, and we would love to see which families would be willing to participate and make it.
So we will also be coordinating with San Mateo County's Big Lift programs.
Correct.
And so we will be piggybacking on that.
Yes.
And, which is from former Supervisor President Carol Broom. She indicated that the county was very involved and committed to making it happen.
Yeah, and we always have a waiting list, and whenever we have a chance, and not only that, we get volunteers as well that work through the summer.
Yeah, I just want to say that as a participant in all of the Friends of the Library meeting, I've got to know Francisco, and I want to let the council know Francisco is doing a fabulous job with our library. We're really grateful to have you here and for you to bring on our new senior librarian. I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you, Councilman DeGolia. Thank you.
So moving on, this is an opportunity for any member of our public to speak on anything that is not on the agenda tonight. Do I have any public comment requests? If not, I'll close public comments and we'll move on to our city manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. You have a written report before you. Just a couple of comments regarding the town and gown. We're looking forward to that sometime in May or June of this year, where we have commitments from Menlo College and Menlo School to not only participate but help us organize the event. So Teresa's going to be putting together an organizing committee, and the idea is that at the event, geared as a social event, we'll have the mayor give a state of the town report. I don't know if I talked to you about that yet, but
I read it.
you read it.
I know.
Exactly.
Oh, how fun. I like that.
So that'll occur at the event, and then the individual meetings that the council directed in terms of the outreach with the individual districts would occur after that. And we would talk as a council about what you want as topics for the particular event before we go to that. And then also, Mike Kashiwagi is prepared this evening to give an update on how the Quiet Zone is going with R.L. Banks.
Yes, so this morning we met with R.L. Banks, our consultant, and the purpose of the meeting was for him to come out and do a site visit. In attendance also was Paul Jones, chair of the rail committee, Narissa Dexter, who is a rail committee member, as well as Councilmember Weiss. The primary purpose of the visit was for R.L. Banks to confirm, to do an inspection and confirm the improvements at Fair Oaks. And then also to take a look at the Watkins Crossing as well, because part of their scope of work is to identify improvements that would be required to make it Quiet Zone eligible, and also to develop, kind of the feasibility of constructing quad gates or other improvements, and also to come up with a budget level cost estimate, for council information. As far as the next steps, now that he's done his field visit, he's going to summarize all that and report to the town, and then move forward with preparation of the notice of intent.
Thank you very much. Do you have anything to add?
No, it was actually a very good visit because we had the opportunity to actually kind of go through several times. So yeah, as you can see, the operation of our quad gates and everything else, and we also have the opportunity to hear our horns. So I think it's in good hands, and Mike did a great job on the tour, and Marissa did a fabulous job talking about all the points that we probably would have forgotten about. So
Just a question, and what is your projection on the timing for that notice to be ready to go?
Well, so he is going to be producing his report in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then depending on his findings, because there could be some information that needs to be clarified or corrected, either prior to or as part of the notice of intent process. So, hopefully within the next 4 or 5 weeks, we'll be in a position to actually start distribution of the notice of intent, which starts that 60-day comment period for the affected railroads.
Councilmember Lepers, are you there? Would you like to make any comments about the R.L. Banks report from Mike Hashwagi? Please start ahead.
Yeah, I'm here, and no, I'm good. I'm just listening, and I'm good. Thank you.
Any other comments on the city manager's report? Yes.
In page 4 of the report, George, you mentioned with regards to the bike lanes and the class 3 lane sharrows that have been put out over the last couple weeks, that the town is ready to move forward on this analysis for class 1 and 2 bike lanes for Sully Lane, Watkins Avenue, and Valparaiso. I know we currently have a bike lane on Middlefield, but I thought that we could prioritize improving that class 2 bike lane and making it class 1 right next to Marshall Road. And that was a priority because of the route to school, the safe routes to school, public schools located along that.
That clarifies your comment that you and I had an email exchange about. I wasn't quite sure where you were talking. Mike, do you have any feedback on that?
Yes, we understand that is a priority, but what was recently completed was that evaluation by the consultant of, the feasibility of doing it, of doing all the class 1s and class 2s, as well as the cost estimate. So what we will be doing now is, bringing that report to the city council, and then so that the city council has a better understanding of, the types of barriers that are out there today, and the type of improvements that would be required in order to implement the class 2s and class 1s, and the approximate cost for doing so.
I think you're specifically targeting the Middlefield.
Yeah, I was specific because I thought we had
And that one
prioritized.
small section.
That was our number one.
Yeah.
That was our number one priority.
So if we could kind of maybe ratchet that up to the top of the list to look at first and see if we can, whatever we need to do to do the green painting on it, or, extend the roadway, the easement, make it more protected.
Remember that conversation.
I think
Thank
that's
you.
what we should do. I have other comments about bike trails, but I'm gonna keep them to myself.
I have a comment about the sheriff.
Well, if you're gonna complain, I'm gonna complain, but.
Well,
The other thing is that, you know how the green boxes are painted around a lot of the bike shows in Menlo Park on some of the larger streets?
I don't remember seeing those.
Yeah, the little bike show has like a green box around it. So you can actually, it comes out at you that is a bike show, and it kind of stay around. I just think ours are pretty darn ugly. Sorry. But that's just my opinion.
I've gotten lots of calls on the Sharrows, and I spoke with the city manager about it. And one of the key comments, it's been explained that these are state required sizes and everything like that. Yeah, but however, there are some places where, like, you have the Sharrow sign, and then like 10 feet later, there's that bicycle with the arrow saying you can turn right or turn left, and it's a T junction, so you can turn right or left. And so I think that maybe several of the comments from the residents have been that we've tried to keep the signage down in Atherton, and now we're kind of overwhelmed with the signs. So in some of these areas where perhaps we have extra signage, or signs are very, very close together, and we can possibly eliminate one or two, I think it would be worthwhile for the committees that are associated with signage and bikes, lanes, and traffic to look at that, perhaps with everybody's approval, and see if we can't reduce some of those.
Yeah, I mean, I think some unintended consequences, maybe installing something per regulation is you install it per regulation, and that's an unintended consequence that they have to be so many feet apart, so, and repetitive, and signage, and that maybe gets beyond our control. So I think we might get used to it. I just think the comfort is not very clean, and it was kind of oversprayed and floppy, and it wasn't well executed. But that's
Totally hear both of those comments. And when Bill and I chatted, my suggestion was that perhaps in those areas where there is some inundation with the Sharrows, that maybe the bike ped committee could take a tour along all these new Sharrow routes, identify some of those spots, talk about it, and if there is any way under the NPCD that we could make adjustments, maybe they make those recommendations.
Does that sound reasonable?
That sounds like quite a
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. I mean, it's a nice bike route, and you can
That's
kind of
Bill's committee.
get, yeah.
Dedicated.
He's on it, okay, great. So I only have one comment about your manager's report, because I think that in your state water emergency drought regulation paragraph, you didn't tell us that, Atherton has reduced, I mean, from the information I've gotten from Bear Gulch, is that we've reduced our water usage by like 41%. I mean, we're doing a great job in water conservation. So I think we need, some pats on the back, and we need to keep doing it, because we're not out of the woods yet. Is that affirmed? Okay, so let's move on. We'll go on to the consent calendar, which is for items 8 through 13. Do I have any comments from any members of the council?
Yes.
Mr. Goodall, go ahead.
I would like to pull, it is item 13.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Reese
No, I'm okay.
and Mr. Widmer?
I had 13
Oh,
on
sorry.
my list too.
13 is the management.
No,
It's 13.
It's 13, yeah.
I want to pull 13.
So I actually want to pull both 13 and 12 and discuss it. So we'll put that at the end of the agenda. Other than that, is there any member of the public who would like to comment or pull any item that's on the consent agenda, number 8 through 13? Okay, yes. And, Mr. Lempress, Vice Mayor Lempress.
It's hard to not notice it, but.
Yes, consent agenda.
No, I've got it. Did I hear that we're pulling both 12 and 13?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, with that, can I get a motion to approve items 8 through 11?
So moved.
Second. All, any opposition? Any abstentions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that motion passes, approving items 8 through 11, and we'll deal with items 12 and 13 at the end of the agenda. So, moving forward, item number 14, which is an ordinance amending the Atherton Municipal Code regarding our animal and fowl ordinance, and I'm going to turn it over to City Planner Lisa Costa-Sanders.
Thank you. The current regulations regarding the keeping of chickens limits the ability to do so on parcels that are 80,000 square feet or greater. But if you have a parcel of that size, then you can have up to 40 chickens. So we had a few code enforcement issues with people keeping several chickens on their properties, less than 80,000 square feet in area. And those persons kind of came forward to the Planning Commission and asked that that topic be studied to lower that threshold a bit. The Planning Commission discussed this item at several meetings. We did do a town-wide mailing on the topic, and at the September 23rd Planning Commission meeting, we had 15 speakers. 3 were opposed and 12 were in favor. The Planning Commission even had an ad hoc committee to study the topic further and to really work with staff to develop some regulations. So what's being recommended by the Planning Commission is that you allow up to 5 chickens on properties that are between ½ an acre and 1 acre, and then ramp it up to 10 chickens if you have 1 acre to 2 acres, up to 20 chickens on properties greater than 2 acres. And then through this process, also working with Sacred Heart Schools. They have a really great environmental sustainability program where they actually have a class on how to tend to some animals, and they have chickens there, so they raise them. I don't know what the proper term is, but they go through the whole life cycle of a chicken, including to the table. So it's a great program, and so we want to allow that to continue as well. So that would allow the 40 chickens on properties greater than 2 acres if associated with an educational or instructional purpose, and roosters would be prohibited. Then the topic of where do you have these chicken runs and coops. We provided several options to the Planning Commission. It could be the setback requirements for a detached accessory structure, which is 10 feet off your side and rear property line, or setback requirements for the main dwelling. So if you had an acre property, that would be 50-foot side yard, 60-foot rear yard. And then the other option was what we have with the second dwelling unit, which is generally it needs to be within the main dwelling, but you could have this 20% encroachment. And so I think I have a little graphic in your staff report that shows if you had that, property that's 200 feet by 200 feet, you would have a standard 50-foot side yard. The chicken coop could be 40 feet from the side yard, 50 feet from the rear yard, and you would also need to maintain an 8-foot separation from the main dwelling. They did want to limit the height to 6 feet and maximum square footage of 120 square feet. They also wanted to require some sanitary provisions so that if it becomes an issue, that's something we can enforce, and then also require a permit issued from the planning department and to have it comply with the town's noise regulations. So I'd be happy to try to answer any of your questions.
Sure. So let's just start out by asking if any member of the council has any clarifying or qualifying questions for Lisa before we open it up for discussion.
I have a question.
Yes, okay.
I'm looking at the graphic, Lisa,
Mm-hmm.
and my question is, what is your gut feel for how many properties basically fill up the main building area with their house?
Yeah, so most people like to fill up the main dwelling area with either their house or their patios, their pools. It's kind of generally in that space. So I'm not sure that the average homeowner is going to be too thrilled with these regulations for the keeping of chickens that close to the main dwelling in their space.
But even if they use that entire building area,
Mm-hmm.
then the only space they could put a coop would be 8 feet away from their house,
Mm-hmm.
but there's only a 10-foot
Right.
buffer.
Yeah. I mean, they're not all maxed out, but generally that's where you're putting your house. That is a large area.
If most people aren't using the whole building area, then I don't think it's a problem. But if they are, then they basically
They have to get a special
regulation.
variance and go to the planning commission?
Yeah, we don't have that
Then
provision at this point. I think the concern from the planning commission was the ones that we did have come forward from code enforcement were right on the property line.
Yeah.
And so, obviously that's a concern. You're not gonna put the chicken coop right on the property line. That's gonna, be concerning for the neighbor.
Yeah.
So what's a reasonable setback? And I think the planning commission just felt, if you're gonna have a chicken, keep it close to you and don't bother everybody else. I'm also a bit concerned about the size of the lot, ½ an acre, so that would really prohibit it in the R1B area. Even Lloyden Park is too small to have a chicken.
Any other clarifying questions? Mike, do you have any clarifying questions for Lisa before we open it up to the public for their comments?
Yeah, no clarifying questions from me. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to open up the public comment for this ordinance and for this topic. Any member of the public wish to speak? Yeah. Forward. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. Kat Westover, 128 Heather Drive. And I just wanted to comment that I was hoping that the setback would be the setback. So for like any other accessory structure, it would be 10 feet. Otherwise, the coop goes in our master bedroom. So that was my 2 cents.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any other members of the public? Yes, Charles.
I'd like to just suggest that the council consider a way to allow for more flexibility, because chickens require a certain kind of environment. It can't be like out in the sun in the middle of the summer. They need some shade. They need a place, you know, where they're not trampling your garden. So you kind of have to place it where it works best in your yard, unless you're really committed to renovating or re-landscaping. So I think that including some kind of provision for a review for the most common sense area in your property makes a lot of sense.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Want to weigh in on chickens? Okay. So I'm going to bring it back to council and let's have a discussion about where we think we are with this. Would you like to start?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Or are you? Or are you?
Oh, I didn't hear that. I didn't hear him say that.
And you know,
I cannot believe that Carrie would say something like, take a shot like that.
I mean, across the bow too. Okay.
So,
I've been cackling all day.
so am I going or are you going?
All right. Now this is really serious. I mean, this is really, it's very serious.
Okay. So first off, I can understand the concern of the build area. Perhaps the build area is filled up, and there in those cases, perhaps there's a need for some sort of variance. But I think that if somebody wants to have chickens, then they should have the chickens and not their neighbors. So there are a number of people that, and I've had chickens my neighbor had chickens, not here in Atherton, but in another area that I lived in. And they do make some noise, and it is irritating to some people. I realize we've got the provision in for roosters, but I think that having them further away from the back area is a good idea, because you wouldn't want to have, for example, your neighbor to put a dog run right along the back fence. In the summertime, it would have odors. Your kids will be playing back there. There will be runoff and those type of things. So I think that there needs to be some sort of setback. There's been a lot of rhetoric with regards to the permitting. I agree with some comments that the city manager has communicated to us. I think the permitting is an important aspect in this process, not to collect a fee per se, but knowing where we have chickens, and also if there is some sort of disease outbreak, we would know to notify certain people in certain areas so that it can get taken care of. So I'm willing to have some sort of variance program, perhaps brought back after we approve something, where if somebody has used up the build area and has to do something different, where their neighbors would be notified and their neighbors would have a chance to come in and weigh in as well. I think that that's fair, because the chickens will be really a regional problem for where it is if you're going to call it a problem. I did take some time, and one last comment. I did take some time and spoke to a number of our major builders in the area, and they've communicated to me that they would prefer not have chickens in Atherton, because they felt that it could devalue people's properties, your neighbor's property. So, but I think that what the Planning Commission came up with is fair, and it does address the majority of people, but we should be considering some sort of variance for the special circumstances as our former mayor has brought up. Thanks.
Sure. Well, I've read through all the comments, both at the Planning Commission level and in open town hall, and there's a lot of people that have opinions here. There's far more people that want chickens than want to prohibit chickens, which is probably the result of the fact that our current ordinance effectively prohibits chickens for anybody that has less than 2 acres of land. So I think that we need to create a reasonable ordinance that enables people to have a reasonable number of chickens, and not one that is going to intentionally prohibit that. I think so I have 3 comments. One is, it seems to me that the number of chickens that is being suggested by the Planning Commission is perfectly reasonable. I agree with Bill. We should have a variance provision that if somebody wants something different than the ordinance, they can apply for it. But in general, this seems to work, and I agree with one of the comments that I read, which was, if somebody wants more than 40 chickens, they've got a chicken farm. So the number seems good to me. There's 2 other things that I'm concerned with, though. One is what I asked Lisa about. If somebody uses the main building area to build their home, and we're seeing lots of large homes being built, then this standard effectively prohibits them from being able to have any chickens. And if they have a, 1-acre lot, I don't see any reason why we should prohibit that. So it seems to me that saying you have to have a 40-foot side setback and a 50-foot back setback, or 80% of that's prohibitive, because the area for the chicken enclosure is 120 square feet, and there's no possible way you can do it. There's not enough room. So I think we have to change that. And I hear what Kat said about using the accessory building setback, which is 10 feet. But that seems like that's too close. Maybe 20 feet, I'm not an expert on this, but 20 feet notwithstanding what Councilman Widmer said, people do have dog runs next to their fences. I have one next to mine. Yes, dogs bark, and it's annoying, but it's not that annoying, it's just part of life. So I think we need to amend that provision and enable it so that if somebody uses their building, the authorized main building area for their building, if they want to have a small chicken coop, they can still have it. And I don't, seems like 20 feet is good, but I'm open to whatever anybody else thinks. That's one point. The second point that I have is, I really don't want this provision to become a big bureaucratic provision that causes a lot of staff time. This is just about chickens. And I think that, and I've had quite a bit of communication with the city manager on this. I think, and I am convinced that the idea of requiring a permit or a license, like the Planning Commission is suggesting, is a good idea. We should know where these are going. But to also require staff to go out and inspect that enclosure area, that seems unnecessary to me. I mean, it's a small little chicken coop. It's fairly defined what the sizing can be, and I think what we want to do is we want to communicate to the homeowner who wants to put in some chickens so their kids can get some eggs and they can learn some responsibility in raising them, to what the rules are, what the ordinance says, what our concerns are in terms of safety and health protection and cleanliness. And we can communicate that if somebody comes in for a permit. I'm just not convinced we need to go out and inspect it, and I think it adds a fair amount of cost if we're having somebody from the planning department go out and inspect the chicken coop. So I guess I would tend to, I don't see what the permit process doesn't appear to be defined in the language that the planning commission has provided to us. The staff report interprets it to be both getting a permit across the desk and sending somebody out to inspect it once they've then created their enclosure. I'm not convinced we need to have somebody from staff go out and inspect it. If there's a problem, the neighbor's gonna complain, and it's going to be like all of our code enforcement issues, initiated retroactively, and I think that's a good thing.
Okay, Councilman Lee.
So I'll start off just to stem off of the permit issue. Just on the permit issue alone, I'm just going to have to disagree with Mr. DeGolia just a little bit, just because of the fact that in order for us to do enforcement, if we're going to implement the allowing of chickens and we don't have any teeth in it, then why are we going to, create an environment that the neighbor can't complain about because we've got nothing. We didn't go out and tell the neighbor or the applicant that, by the way, this is where your chicken coop has to be. This is where you're required to keep them. This is the area that it's allowed. You need to make sure that you maintain it. If we don't have our oversight on it, then the neighbor's going to complain. Well, what are you going to do about it? Every time I turn around, every time it's a rainy day, I complain because I smell chickens. So there's where I think that we have to have some form of teeth and to say, one, to the person that we're allowing it, and two, that the people feel like we're going to have something to dig back into the person that we allowed it to happen. So I'm on a little bit of a different perspective, although I agree that there's a nice charm to the education component. I was raised with chickens, so I know chickens, and not that I can have chicken humor or anything like that, but I am a big supporter of the educational component that goes with chickens, but I also believe that there is a proper place for chickens. I'm not asking for emus, but I also think that we have to be very considerate of surrounding parcels. Atherton is a unique community. I am not really one of the people that would like to say under an acre that chickens would be permissible, because I think that it makes the difficult.
Jerry, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I can't hear you at the moment. Could you speak up, please?
Absolutely, Mike. I'll put the microphone closer because I'm not going to make a joke, but yes, Mike, I will. So I think that the fact that Atherton's a unique community, and that having some limitations on the smaller parcels, I kind of believe, if I could section this out, I would say that most people in the western section of Atherton would probably feel that that is an area that chickens would be normal and more acceptable. But when you start moving chickens into areas where it's just a little bit of a different environment, more residential estate setting, I don't think that the people in those settings typically want to hear or smell chickens, frankly. So I think that there's really less concern as far as noise, because I think we have people that have dogs that make noises, chickens make noises while they're laying eggs. We do have the provision within this that says no roosters, which is completely appropriate. But I think I would focus a little bit more on restricting it to acres and an acre and plus, and limiting it that anything below an acre, it just wouldn't be acceptable. I do think that we have to make some consideration. Ms. Gardner made some comments related to chickens and sunlight, and she's absolutely correct. You can't say, that the chickens are going to sit out in the middle of the rear yard and think that they're going to live. I mean, part of this is that they do live. So they live a happy life and hopefully retire, have a few eggs. But the reality is we got to make sure that that environment that we put something in, if we've got something that we're creating an ordinance that says you can't do it with, most of our people that are building newer homes today are going to build within their building envelope and maximize that, so therefore they can't have chickens. So then we're going to hear that next layer of complaint. So if they're going to have the ability to have it, we've got to make a provision that's reasonable if they have the land area to do it, to make that provision able for them. So I think that that's pretty much, like I said, to me it's less of a noise issue and it's more of a smell issue. Just because, you know, like for example, it's raining today, you know, you can't expect somebody, but if it rains a few days and chickens are running around, you're going to get smell, and it would be, it's just not fair to the neighbors that would have to, you know, have that as an aroma. Unless you're in the country like I'm in Western Atherton, I kind of expect if I smell chickens, it's less irritating to me, but it would be more irritating to somebody that didn't have that same level of expectation. So that's it for me.
Vice Mayor Lopez, would you like to make any comments on this?
Yeah, I would, but I'd like to ask Carrie a question. Carrie, I apologize. I missed some of what you said. I heard most of it, but what were you recommending with regard to the half acre?
I was basically, Mike, saying that anything less than an acre, I would say no chickens. I think that we have the areas that we do have that have the smaller parcels are clustered pretty close together, and I can't see a reasonable amount of chickens. 5 is still too many for a small parcel. I've had them, and again, there are very responsible people that, you know, I would expect that all of our people are, but there are times where you can't get, if it's raining for a number of days, you're going to get smell, and if you're close to somebody and somebody's bedroom window is in wind distance, I think that is, you know, a negative impact that I think we should kind of try to avoid.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Mike.
So my view on this, first I want to thank the Planning Commission for a lot of work. I know they put a lot of effort into this, and a lot of good work in it. And I can go through a number of issues that other people raised that I agreed with. Philosophically, one of the things that I think was important was Bill's point that if you have chickens, they should be your chickens, not your neighbor's chickens. And I also agreed with the point I think both Rick and maybe everybody raised about some flexibility in this ordinance, whether that's, you know, a variance process, or we incorporate a slightly different setback in here, because I agree that the comment Rick made about if somebody's, you know, completing their building envelope, it's not, they've got no options. There's no way they can put these in. With regard to the permit itself, I think a permit is a good idea, and I do think we should have people out looking at the issue. I think Rick, I believe, or somebody earlier said that we've effectively prohibited, the ordinance effectively prohibits chickens from lots of less than 8,000 square feet, but in practice that has not been the case. That there's been a lot of much smaller lots of chickens in town. And I think if we don't plan on enforcing it, we'll end up with that same situation, that whatever we put in place will not have any impact, or will not have the same impact. And as to the half acre, I actually hadn't thought through fully with the issue Carrie just raised, but I think, you know, I'd love to hear other people's thoughts. My inclination would be to say no, that on a half acre lot, if it's done properly, people should be able to have chickens. So that's still a fairly sizable lot. And there will be some impact on their neighbors, but as others have mentioned, you know, dogs and other things have impacts on neighbors as well, and it's sort of part of living in a community. So in general, those are my thoughts. I don't know what we have in front of us now. Because I heard two things that are very actionable, and I'd love to hear, you know, how that would play out. One is do we build a variance in this process now, or do we wait? Two is I would support something going along the lines of what Rick recommended, which was adjusting the setback a little bit.
Okay, anything else? Okay.
Not for me, thank you.
All right. My comments, I've got a couple of questions. Actually, they're clarifying questions. I should have asked them earlier. But in the proposed number of chicken regulations of item 2, item 4, said for no more than 40 chickens may be permitted on any lot 2 acres or greater in area if associated with educational instructional purposes upon discretion of town planner. So explain to me what that means. I mean, what I'm reading is that you can only have 40 chickens if it's associated with educational instructional purposes, sort of like what Sacred Heart has.
School. That was the intent for the
That's
schools.
the intent of that.
Yeah.
It's not worded very clearly to me, and I think that some people are interpreting it again that if you've got 2 acres, you can have 40 chickens.
We can clarify that.
But
On school
that's not
properties
what,
only.
that's not what this is saying.
Yeah, we can change that wording to be
Right.
more specific if that's what you'd like.
Right, so Rick, did you get that? Because I think you thought that you could have 40 chickens on 2 acres.
There is,
No, on greater than 2 acres, is what it says.
Yeah, one time there was a poultry farm with 40 chickens. That's where this thing got written in.
Right,
yeah,
and
I
so-
believe there is one property that has a large number of chickens.
And so what do they do with all of
The
it?
ordinance right now
Yeah.
says if you
Large
have
property.
80,000 square feet, you can have an unlimited
I know,
number.
but we're talking about
No, I think
what
it's
we're.
40, yeah.
Yeah, you could have
Well, I
up
think
to
if there's
40.
more, you can have, yeah.
Okay, so so just basically, we're not saying that you can have 40 chickens on 2 acres or more.
The thought was
Unless-
just to limit it to the school properties.
It was
Unless
just
it's
Sacred
to
Heart,
school.
yeah.
Okay,
Right.
just wanna make sure that. And then, is the ordinance talking about, keeping the chickens in their coop all the time? Or can they be free range and then they have to go into their coop?
It says they do need to be within an enclosure, so like in a fenced chicken run area.
And that chicken run has to be within.
In the
their
same setback areas.
Yeah, which,
So they can't be free range chickens.
they're not free range chickens.
They're not.
All right, so.
Well, they're free range within 120 square
Could I
feet.
ask a
No,
question on
that's
your,
that's
on
the
your
size
40
of the
for the
coop,
education?
not the
Of-
size
of
of
the
the
planter?
chicken run.
Sure, because it's confusing to me.
Yeah, so Lisa, with the way you've written this 2 acre and 40, and even though you've verified it with it's going to be Sacred Heart only,
Well, no.
any
school.
so any school, anywhere, and all the schools have more than 2 acres, can set up chicken coops. Laurel School, Oak Knoll School, Encinal,
40 chickens.
yeah.
Up to 40.
And you know, I think that the neighbors around those schools would have they put up with all the traffic, all the noise, and now they're gonna have chickens. You know, if we're doing a carve out for Sacred Heart, then it should be a carve out for Sacred Heart.
Well, we can't-
They have their coop right in the middle, and it was a pre-existing, which
Right.
is why you're carving it out. If you're just gonna put carte blanche that it can be at any school, then I'm not in favor of that at all.
So the coop still needs to meet the setback requirements for the school. So that's similar, the 50 and the 60 feet. And I think technically the public schools could exempt themselves anyway if it was a
Right.
school
So-
purpose.
Madam
Yes, sir.
Can I think I'm hearing a lot of good comments from the council that are zeroing in on some problems with this ordinance. And can I give you some guidelines to shoot for? This ordinance, I've heard, council member DeGold, but I think, I expect you to make comments, but I was just, because people are starting to talk about, this is a very subjective ordinance. You can have 40 chickens if the town planner thinks it's okay. That's absolutely about as bad as a language as you can put in an ordinance ever. Because if the town planner likes you, get chickens if the town, what we need to focus on, I'm just not picking on Lisa, I'm just
Well,
saying.
that was my,
If-
my next step.
if we can try to find some objective standards, a
Right.
variance is not going to work because a variance is a legal term that has to do with a condition of property that makes it so that your neighbors get something, but you can't because your property has too much slope or too much shade or something. And the variance concept, what you're really saying is maybe you need tiers, like if from this size you can have 6 chickens, if it's a little bigger you can have 10 chickens, and if it's a huge lot you can have 40 chickens. But I think objectively, not subjectively, and not with a variance procedure or something where staff has to, or the council, the council, if you want to hear chicken problems, and my experience in another community is chickens your neighbors will not like you. There will be problems, and we will have to deal with them. So as much as you can, anticipate, and I think you're doing a good job of hitting the issues, if you can now come up with some kind of objective levels, I think it would help the
I
process.
think I'd like to continue my
I just wanted to ask on
discussion
this
here.
one topic. Sorry. Just because you made it, you opened
I
up.
opened the door for you.
I appreciate
And then
it.
everybody.
I have another comment too.
I'm
Like,
sorry.
I just,
I'm finished.
I just wanted to comment on his variance comment. Can you clarify, would
You don't-
somebody like Sacred Heart have the ability to say they were grandfathered in? Because they've had them for 100 years and nobody else has them.
And they're not involved in a setback situation.
Right, it's in the middle of
They're
town.
right there on the
Would that be
road.
a,
Grandfathering never runs against the public agency, so there's no such thing. They, unless they came to us and got a permit, then they would be grandfathered. But you can't just say, well, nobody ever complained for 40 years or so, therefore, I think I should get to keep them. It's a good argument.
thank you for the clarity. I was, sorry, Mayor, I was just trying to.
So I think you're all also saying that the setback issue, changing the setback is a good idea if they want to do that, but instituting a variance process is not, because a man-made condition of building out your house doesn't constitute grounds for a variance.
Yeah, we do have a special structure permit provision that does go before the planning commission, that there's certain findings that you would need to make. So that's, I would prefer to have the objective
Right.
criteria established in the code rather than if this then that, and go forward to the planning commission, keep it very straightforward. But there is the ability with a special structure permit, the variance I would not recommend under any
Well,
situation.
Clearly, most of the complaints have been because the setbacks have not even been close to reasonable. People have built their chicken coops right up against the fences,
Right.
Which is not only impolite and discourteous to your neighbors, but it's, any structure has to be at least 10 feet away from the property line. And so that on its face is a code violation.
Yes.
So to make it, if it's further from the property line, and in most cases, the main livable structure is, 40, 50 feet away from the property line, and so that neighbor is going to have 40 to 50 feet, and then if you do 20 to 25 feet in a special structures permit from your property line, then that's 80 feet. So it's in. You typically put it in an area where it's not going to be in your main living or recreational area, right? It's mostly in the back 40 or whatever. So I think that the setback proposal that the planning commission has presented is just unreasonable. I don't think that it's workable. Just like Councilwoman Jagoya and everyone else has said. I have a small property. I don't even think I think it's about that much from an acre, and I can't imagine having chickens on my property. I just can't. I can't imagine where they would go, and we're on a corner lot, and so we only border two other people, but I just can't imagine. And I love chicken. My husband loves chickens, and his mother wrung us necks, and we know chickens. We put a chicken in every pot, but I just can't imagine that. So I agree that we would have not.
But the person that buys your house could actually have chickens there, though.
Well,
based on what you're saying, and is that fair to your neighbors?
I'm just not sure. I think that half an acre is a little too small. Yes, sir.
So a couple things. I just want to clarify from my reading of the ordinance in terms of what we're talking about a chicken enclosure.
You're right, I reread it.
Includes a coop
Correct.
within it.
Correct.
So in fact, the chickens can be free run between when they walk out of the coop and they run around the little 120-foot enclosure.
In the 120-foot chicken enclosure, yes.
Okay. So.
And the coop is not 120 feet. It's
Well,
not a 10 by 12.
No, it's
The coop needs
is
to be within the enclosure.
And the enclosure is 120 square feet. That's what it says.
So the coop is smaller.
So, the fact is, we have chickens. We have lots of people that have chickens. That's why we got 40-some comments from people supporting us changing the ordinance.
Yeah.
Because they have chickens contrary to what
Current ordinance says.
our rule of law,
Yeah.
which says they can't have chickens unless they have 80,000 square feet. So that's why we're even spending all of the time on this thing.
That's right.
And we should enable them and to have some chickens that are reasonable within a structure that is reasonable. This came up initially because I received a letter from a fellow who lives in Lindenwood who has 5 chickens, just exactly to teach his kids how to be responsible. And whether he succeeded or not, I don't know. But there are very few properties in Lindenwood that are an acre. There might be 2. It's almost entirely less than an acre.
Well, it's the 0.92 acre, it's the Atherton acre.
No,
So-
we're talking about, if you've got an
Oh, in
acre, you've got an
Lindenwood or in
acre.
Boyden Park, did you say?
No, he was Lindenwood. He was on flood zone.
Lindenwood is almost 100% less than an acre.
Yeah.
I think, look, I think the planning commission reviewed what the ordinances are in the county of San Mateo for unincorporated areas and what the ordinances are in neighboring
Several
cities.
jurisdictions, yeah.
All of whom have property sizes substantially less than us, and do they allow chickens or not?
Menlo
In the-
Park?
They do, the smaller, yes.
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 Absolutely.
I mean, okay, well, they can have chickens. If people are gonna have chickens in Lindenwood, either we're gonna let them have them under an ordinance that we approve, or they're gonna do it outside of the ordinance if they want to.
And if it's outside the ordinance, then if people complain, then they would get it taken care of. But there were, as you pointed out, there was 40 or 50 people that responded that said, yeah, we'd like chickens. But how many households do we have? And how many registered voters do we have in the town? And it's substantially more than 40. So I'd say that the survey had like 2%.
Well, yes,
True.
so maybe it was
So,
not
I have 1%.
statistically,
But-
valid. One of the things that, the policy focus in the staff report, or staff report talks about Atherton, while residential in nature, many properties are large, expansive, in many cases decidedly non-rural. Well, I don't know, our philosophy, our general plan says that scenic, rural, thickly wooded residential. I mean, scenic, rural, how much more rural can you get if you have some chickens, running around in your backyard? I agree, you need to have the ability to have chickens, you have to contain them, they have to have, sunlight, and they have to be kept clean, we have to, kind of know where they are in our town, and I think the permitting process is a really good thing. I just think we need to, hone the numbers of chickens that we think, smaller lots can accept, and be good neighbors, and the setbacks. I don't think the setback that's been, recommended by the planning commission is practical. I think it's just not, something that is satisfactory, so we need to come up with something else.
Well, could we have a setback? Do you think a setback would work that would be based on the size of the lot? So a setback of this size if you have an acre or more, a setback of this size if you're in a half acre, and a setback of this size if you're whatever.
In a smaller lot.
Yeah, so a smaller lot would have a smaller setback.
And then you
Understand.
have smaller numbers.
Right.
I don't think any more than 20 chickens on lots greater than 2 acres should be had. 5 to 10 chickens in lots 1 to 2 acres, I think is a good number.
Although I don't disagree much with Carrie's position on an acre, less than an acre. Or you can say less of 0.9 of an acre to cover the Lindenwood group.
Yeah.
That might be
Yeah.
acceptable.
Yeah.
But I do think that, and in one of the things I read in the planning commission meetings was that they were trying to identify things that different size lots would have different types of rules and different number of chickens. And so, but I do, go back to the comment that is that it's, you want to make sure that if you want to have chickens, that they're your chickens and not somebody else's.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And it can't be a nuisance, yes, sir.
So I have a suggestion in terms of the setback issue.
Yeah.
If instead of, we use exactly the language that the planning commission suggested, but instead of saying by not more than 20% of the required setback, we say by not more than 50% of the required setback. On an acre lot, which is a 40-foot and a 50-foot setback, that would change it to 20 feet and 25 feet. And it would, I'm sure it would have some variance with respect to the size of the lot, just like Bill suggested, if we use that percentage. So I think that would solve that problem.
What page are you changing the language on?
It's in item J 4A.
So that'd be
For
on
little
page
4
8.
IBA.
Yeah.
It's on page
Okay.
8. It just changes 20 to 50%. And that makes a 20-foot and 25-foot setback, and it gives, if somebody's built out the whole area, then it's got to be 8 feet away from their house. So if it's 20 feet, that's 12 feet. That gives you 12. You can put in a 12 by 10 foot enclosure in that area, and that would work. I just want to say in Lindenwood, the average lot size is not, it's not 0.9. There's plenty of 3/4 acre lots in Lindenwood. There's lots. The average, when I looked at it the last time I did that analysis, it's in the 0.7 range. A little higher than that. There's lots of.
Well, I think we have to draw a line somewhere, Rick. I really do. You know, we're not gonna cover every circumstance, and, you know, and I don't know if this guy that wrote to you, and his letter is in here, the guy on Flood Circle, I forget his name, I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah.
You know, if he's got a 0.75 acre, and so now we're trying to make sure that we cover him, I don't know. But I do think that it can be a problematic thing, and it will be something that code enforcement will then be addressing. And, you know, people have certain size lots, and that's what they bought. They knew what they were getting into when they bought it. And if we're gonna give some flexibility, fine, but we can't envision you have a cliff and a step function, and that's how it should be. And if you don't fall into that step, then you're down at the next step, and you've got a different setback, I'm sorry. And you've got a different number of chickens that you can have. I mean, you gotta draw the line somewhere, because
The planning commission suggested drawing the line at 0.5 acres, saying we've got properties that are less than 0.5 acres.
But in that same tone, we're also trying to eliminate the amount of bureaucracy, the enforcement, and we're gonna have, the larger parcels are gonna be able to handle chickens a little bit more than smaller parcels. So if we're talking about code enforcement would probably sit on all the small parcels with all the complaints if everybody gets chickens.
So I just want to make clear, I cannot imagine that the whole town of Atherton, if we do this, is that all these small properties are gonna go out and get chickens, you know. They're just not. Right? They're just not.
They're just not.
I mean, there's a lot of people that support it.
They don't get them in Redwood City and
Yeah.
Menlo Park, which have
Every house has
smaller than 0.5 acre lots that can have chickens. That this is a minor issue.
But that's a
Yes.
clarifying question to Rick's comment about changing the 20% to 50% that he said. So if that changes from 20 to 50, there's another sentence right after that says, in any case, the chicken enclosure shall not be located closer than 50 feet to any building on the adjoining lot.
Yeah,
So if we allow it to get closer, that becomes more of an issue. Is that a main building or an accessory building, or is it any building?
It says any building.
It would have to be. the
So it
main
could
building.
be, well, then we need to clarify that. Because right now it says any building, so it could be the pool house.
Yeah, yeah.
So we could say to the main building.
Because you
or
don't have
Nobody's living in
25
the pool
feet.
house, right?
Right.
But your neighbors have their house set back from 50 feet, so, you know, I don't think that that's fair to say the main house. It's not fair.
Well, increase
Not
that
fair.
number if it's the main house, because the main house is gonna be set back 50 feet anyway from the property line.
40 feet
So,
on the side.
you can add another 20 feet, 70 feet.
Well, I would want to see it bigger than that, personally. If it were in my backyard, I would want to see it, you know, because my house is already set back 50 feet, okay? So saying 50 feet, if the minimum's gonna be 50 feet, well, then they put it right on the fence.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
No, so I would
Yeah, that's not-
I would
we've got
suggest
all of that.
we use 70 feet from the main building
From the main building.
instead of 50 feet from any building.
From the main building,
Well, you
but
said 50% of the
not a
setback, so
actual
it's
building.
75 anyway, not 70.
But they still have to respect the 10-foot setback from the property line, for any structure.
Oh, at least, yes, yeah, so,
And that's
so
accessory
I think what we're
structure.
saying is it's gotta be at least
Yes.
20 to 25.
Accessory structure, so
we just say 20 to 25
No.
from the property line instead of from the main building of the adjacent
So
property?
there's two different things. One is the setback from the side and rear setbacks. If it said not more than 50% from the side and rear setbacks, that would be, 50% of 40 is 20, 50% of 50 is 25. So it'd be 20 feet from the side yard,
The fence.
side fence, and 25 feet from the back fence. And if you said it has to be at least 70 feet from the main, and the neighbor's main dwelling,
Building footprint.
then that's gonna be, theoretically, their building could be 40 feet from the side yard, so you'd have to push it back another 10 feet.
Yeah, I would echo that our concern, our focus should be the property lines inward and keeping the chickens away from the neighbors versus the people that want them, that can enjoy them, should bear the burden of all that enjoyment.
Exactly.
Just keep it from the property line inward, not.
Right,
not-
because I gotta tell you, if
That's what I think.
I can tell you
You
that.
can't control what the other residents, setback is and anything. So Mike, do you have any comments? I'd like to have you weigh in on this.
No, I mean, nothing to add except that I think where Rick is going makes sense to me, and I think that people with smaller lots have an expectation. There's a different feeling in the neighborhoods that have smaller lots and the neighborhoods that have the larger ones. And I think that it's people know that if your neighbors have something in a smaller lot, that you just expect a little more interaction with your neighbor and your neighbor's dog, and theoretically your neighbor's chickens. So Rick's percentage idea, I think makes sense, although I'm trying to see exactly how we'd phrase it, but I think it makes sense to me.
Okay, so, because what Rick is saying, 20 feet or 25 feet from your property line, even on the smaller lots, that would be very difficult, I think.
I said use the 50 foot. I don't know what the
Percent.
side and back setback is for a half acre lot.
You were saying
Yeah, no,
use
it varies based on the width of the lot.
Yeah.
So it's a sliding scale, which is,
So if you
it's
use
50% is what you were
and
talking
that is
about.
flexible, it
Within-
changes as the lot size.
Right.
Okay, so, Mike, I think to use the percentage rather than the number of feet from a property line might accommodate the smaller lots. And you're feeling that smaller property lot owners, they are more tolerant possibly with neighbors who may have chickens because they live closer together. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Well, I don't know if they're more tolerant or not. I think that there's an expectation when you buy a smaller lot that you'll have more interaction with your neighbors. And I'm not sure that that's often positive, and sometimes there's probably some negative stuff that goes with that, as with dogs or anything else.
Okay.
So that's what I mean. But yes, generally that's the direction. You got my concept.
Okay.
I'm still, though, I'm not sure how we would phrase that. Ricky suggested some language. I don't know if we've sharpened it up or how it would play out. But the concept I get, the specific language I'm still struggling with on the percentage.
City manager?
Perhaps we could take a stab at it.
Yeah.
We're not going to
You
solve the
wanna-
whole thing tonight. We could take a stab at it, return it back to the council with the feedback I've picked up so far, and Lisa, see if you can add anything. Permit process is okay, inspection process.
I think inspection is important to me.
All that has to be determined, and the fees structure needs to be laid out. We can work on that as well. Clarify the educational use issue within the ordinance in some way for the 40 chicken issue. 50% of a setback, sliding scale, so it goes up and down. No changes to the number of chickens based on that scale yet?
Oh, I think so.
Well, you said you
Yeah.
were going to do that, yes.
Yeah, we're gonna change.
But back to the setback, I think I heard 50%, but then eliminate the measurement from the adjacent
Be in
building.
any case,
Right.
Yeah, limited time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I will interject, if we're going below an acre or 3/4 of an acre, then I think that the smaller parcels have to have less chickens. I don't agree that 5 chickens, I think 5 chickens is a lot of chickens for a 10,000 square foot lot.
still.
It'd be a 21,000 square foot lot,
It's
is
still
half an
5
acre.
chickens. So I still think that's, I mean, too many chickens.
Can you have 3 chickens,
Three
2 chickens?
chickens.
I mean, you know.
I mean, if you're trying to teach them something and responsibility, you can do that with 2. It's not like you have to have a family.
I think 3 is a nice number.
Yeah, there's something about 3 that my neighbor researched recently
There is.
that works well together.
So I
There's
would
3.
be willing to, if we're going to a lower level on lot, then we have to reduce the amount of chickens, reduce the impact, reduce the lot size, and then I'll say, I can support it, but I
Okay.
can't, or I'll cut it off.
I'm sorry, lower than half an acre?
What numbers are you
Anything lower than, so we're looking at staff's recommendation for.
Planning commission recommendation?
Excuse me, I apologize.
Yeah, you cut off at half.
Yeah, so you cut it off at a half, so
Right.
half was between an acre, yeah.
So 0 below half?
Yeah.
Yeah, 0, that's a good number.
That's where it is right now.
That's where it is now, yeah, correct.
All right, 0 below half acre, 3,
3 is half an acre to 1?
half acre to 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And up to 10 on 1 to 2,
Right.
and up to 20 on over 2.
I think that's too
That
big.
seems like
I think
a
that's
lot.
too much.
I do too.
I think even for an acre to 2 acres, I don't know. I'd ask Carrie how many you think is reasonable for that size neighbor.
I'm gonna say that if you're responsible and you're on 5 acres, you could probably have 40 chickens and nobody's gonna complain. I mean, we're gonna be complaining, we're not out looking for it, but I think that if we just come up with a reasonable figure, I mean, I think that if you've got acreage, 40 chickens disappear pretty quickly. But I also.
Why would you have
Especially
40
if you have
chickens?
raccoons.
That's what I
Especially
want
if you
to
have
know.
raccoons.
That's a farm, we're not dealing with, we're
I
dealing
don't
with somebody
think
who
we
has
want a farm.
between an acre and 10 acres. I mean, and 1 acre, 2 acres.
It's a lot of
I
chickens.
don't know why we wouldn't let them have 10 chickens.
Yeah, I think 10 chickens is fine.
I think we did this survey, so you wanted to point to the survey before, and they said on regular sized lots in Atherton, 6. I mean, so you can't point to, Rick, you cannot point to the survey as irrelevant as I believe it is, and then not point to it when it doesn't agree with you.
Well, that's an acre to, okay. Up to 6. We're down to 6 as the average. But some people said 12. They did? You know?
I read every one of the
I
responses.
did too,
I'm
but
sure
you
you did.
know,
I know that you
you know.
do. I read every question that you don't read.
So,
I mean, I think that people do, I apologize, but I do think that people do try to get a manageable.
depends how hungry you are, chief.
Yeah. Some people
Depends on how hungry you are.
Yeah, I think that people are responsible in managing the number of chickens that they have. I mean, you can only eat so many eggs. Cholesterol.
It's a chicken in every pot, it could be faster than that.
Wait, the mayor already used that line, I'm sorry.
All right.
6.
I think we're all cooked up here.
So I will only say that just because the size of the lot makes a difference with me, I don't have a problem with 10 with 1 acre.
8 to 15 years, but some chickens live
But
up to 20
my
years.
real concern is
That's
the
a
smaller
commitment.
lots and reducing the number of birds.
We'll keep the 10. We're gonna
Some
keep
old
it.
heads.
Yeah.
3, 10, 20, 40.
Yeah, but the 40, I have a real problem.
It's gonna be
with.
schools
I mean,
only.
I think
it's
40 is
almost-
too many. I agree.
Schools only.
40 is too many.
Yeah.
Well, why does it have to be 40 though?
Well, they've got 100 kids.
You wanna take a site inspection?
Yeah.
There's 2
Okay.
classes of 20.
All right, let's,
Everybody
so
should be heard.
we've given staff enough direction on this. Vice Mayor Lempres, we're going to close this, topic. Do you have anything else to say?
I do have a question, and I'm just not a chicken expert. And is there any difference other than the obvious 2 chickens between maintaining 3 and 5? Is there any reason people would want to go above 3 for, I don't know, that has something to do with the nature of raising chickens?
No.
No.
Yes,
Okay.
Okay.
they get eaten by wildlife, you lose a few.
Well,
So
you
have
get
a
more
few
little.
so that you maintain an even.
Yeah.
Well, that's
But
even
the-
worse, so now.
Put a
You just
top
have
on
to-
your,
Deal with
put a top
wildlife.
on your coop.
So you're gonna bring this back to us, next month, please?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Do you want us to come back with, some
Yes.
graphics in terms of how the percentages would work
A
out?
table
for
for
Yes.
each lot?
Just a table
Yeah.
would be good.
That'd be
Yeah.
good.
A chicken
And
table.
if I can suggest, the graphic,
You can draw.
the graphic is really good, but it doesn't show where the chicken coop goes in that drawing. And
Well,
that
we're
would
not
be-
using that.
It's in the dashed area.
It does, it's in the shaded area.
It's in the shaded area.
Anywhere in that shaded area?
Yeah.
It could be any size?
120 square feet.
120, okay.
It's just, I thought you were gonna have it as a chicken coop drawing.
Sorry, I'll try to get more chicken
Okay,
graphics.
so we're gonna move on to our next item, which is item number 15, is the Environmental Programs Committee 2016 Earth Day event, work plan and budget as recommended by the Environmental Programs Committee. And Lisa is up to present the staff report.
Thank you. The Environmental Programs Committee is requesting a $5,000 appropriation for an Earth Day event. And they have some ideas involving some pre-marketing and outreach to try to gauge what the community interest is. And then also possibly hosting an environmentally themed movie prior to it. And then the main Earth Day event would occur sometime around April 22nd. With some educational booths, with some different vendors, student competition, some ideas about food, beverages, and live music as well. And so we don't have a lot of time to plan this, so we need some direction from the council if this is something you'd like to proceed with, the budget authorization, and then also the event. Valerie Gardner, the chair of the Environmental Programs Committee, has been authorized by the committee to speak to you, so if you have any questions, she'd be happy to address those.
Thank you. I just might add that if we read our minutes of January 13th, council did direct the Environmental Programs Committee to do exactly what is being presented here in this work plan. Community education awareness, vendors, guest speakers involving local schools, and kid-friendly, and involving PG&E, Cal Water colleges. So I think that all of that has been incorporated into a proposal here. So Valerie, would you like to say anything more about this?
I think you have a pretty comprehensive outline, so I'm really here to answer questions if there's anything you want to ask.
All right,
There's not
let's
much
ask the council for any questions. Would you like to go, or do you have questions, Mr. Whitman?
No, I thought we were gonna go to the comments.
Okay, any clarifying questions right now? No? Any clarifying questions? Vice Mayor Lempres, do you have any clarifying questions for?
No.
No?
No questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. So, did you,
Well, I wanted to speak up, but I knew you were gonna roll into a couple comments, since Valerie was here.
Okay.
I don't know some history, so I'm gonna have to ask some history related to Earth Day, historic Earth Day, because I know that you were involved historically with Earth Day. So can you give me a little taste?
Historic Atherton Earth Day?
Just, yeah, Atherton, what we did historically.
how many do you want to talk about?
So, Atherton has only done one Earth Day event, like a real expo type thing. We did that in 2007. It was really well received. It was called the Earth Action Week, and we did a few similar types of panel discussions. We had 2 movies at that time. We did An Inconvenient Truth and Who Killed the Electric Vehicle, or whatever it was called. And we had about 6 related sort of active activities for that event, including student competitions. We had an eco-fashion dance. There was a lot going on. This is a little bit simpler, a little more straightforward. So that Earth Day event in 2007 was the start of a series of sort of progressions that we did, and actually, now that I think about it, we did a second fair that was focused on a student environmental challenge. So in the 2008, right? So we replicated it, but what we learned in the first year was that residents didn't come out and get engaged as much as we thought they would. So we brought the students into action and involved them with a competition where we gave out some hefty prizes, and we got a lot of participation. We had something like 63 participating teams, if I remember, and we gave out, I think, in the neighborhood of $5,000 in prizes, and it got a lot of juices flowing, a lot of kids involved, and we had a big community turnout, which we did voting on the presentations right there at the event, and it was really, really good. So
Excuse me. So in the 2007 thing, what type of budget did we work with in 2007 in the outreach? And then when you got to 2008, what type of budget did you work with related to 2008?
So, I believe in the first year we started out with a $10,000 budget, and we raised about the same amount. I think in the subsequent year was about 15,000, and we raised about the same amount, and it grew up to, I believe, the high was in the 2009 expo that we had at Menlo School. It was, and that was just an expo, not. I mean, yes, we did do the student challenge also.
Live Green.
The Live Green. And that was more like a $20,000 budget, and we didn't spend that. We actually raised more money that year than we used from the town. So I think in each year we only used funds that we raised to fund the prizes that we gave away, and the town budget we used on things like outreach and marketing and tables and staff time, mailers and things like that. So we were very conservative about how we used the town money, and then we did some fundraising from the sponsors or the exhibitors or donations from the community. We actually asked people just to donate, and it all went to the town, and it was used for the fun stuff like the kid activities and the prizes.
So if we can run over 2007 to 2009, attendance roughly for 2007, kind of give us a figure.
It's sort of stretching my memory, but I recollect, Elizabeth, you may remember, about 150 people in the first year, which I thought was a little disappointing. And about double that in the second year?
Yeah, the event at over Palmer Park, out on the plaza in the main the Jennings Pavilion area, it was packed with, booths and kids of all ages.
Right.
You know,
There was a
little
student
kids.
art contest too. They did environmental art for the little kids, and we had the
high schoolers.
The high schoolers doing a different challenge. So
And
there's a lot going on.
You have to understand, this was kind of like in the beginning of wanting to get, green, education out there, and
Right.
we did a big student challenge and a great poster.
Right.
It was,
In 2009.
that was the Live Green.
2009 had the Live Green Challenge, which we handed out a six-sided challenge form, 10,000 copies to 18 area schools, and we had about 2,000 kids returning them, and they got points on their challenge form if they showed up at the expo. So we had a lot of kids there, and it was at Menlo School, and I don't know that I have actual numbers on how many participants, but the kids were really into it, and
Did you feel like you doubled your 300 to 600?
I do. I feel like we had a full gymnasium of people, and it was filled with exhibitors. So the exhibitors are very excited about this kind of thing. They love to show what they have available for homeowners. It's an attractive market for new technologies and for products that can help reduce carbon emissions. So it was actually very well attended. So I thought it was really, we were making good progress at that time.
Thank you. It helps because I'm looking at numbers, and it's nice to know some history since you were there.
Right, I brought my binder the last time, but I forgot to bring it this time. We had an enormous amount of process that helped to make it a success.
More questions from me?
Do you have any questions?
Just to clarify, so the budgets for those 3 years were 10, 15, and 20?
I believe so. I think it progressed up each year because it was successful. We kept getting, council to support more and more parts that we were doing. The last year when I did that very big challenge form, that was an expensive print job, so we got more budget. Yeah.
I'll ask Vice Mayor Lundquist. Mike, do you have any questions for Valerie at this time?
No, I don't. I'm good. Thank you.
Well, my only question is, there's a lot that's written down here, and so some of the things like the competitions for the students and things like that, those would actually be held at the schools, and then the big event, where we would have the suppliers and things like that, they would be held over at the park, is what I'm understanding, or some centralized area.
I think that actually the idea is to educate the community.
Mhm.
So the competition for the students would be to have them address a question, create just like a presentation poster board that they've done some research and they've created a nice design, and they presented these boards up on the tables, and the community goes around reading what they're presenting about the environment. So they're doing their own research, and then the community reads them. And the idea is that it helps to educate the community. It gives students an opportunity to do something that's related to the environment and science. They get community service credit. Sometimes they can get class credit. Sometimes there's other things that, they use it for their resume or whatever it is, but they have the opportunity to win a prize, which benefits them. And then the community benefits by reading these research projects, like as if in the science fair type
Okay, that's what I was
style.
gonna say, science fair.
It's like a science fair. The community, reads them, and then in the second year, we had the community have a vote card. They went around checking which one they thought was the number 1, number 2, number 3, and then we tallied them right there, handed out the prizes right there. So it was all done at the park, and it was all done in a big community setting, and it was fun, and it allowed the community to make the choices. I didn't actually have judges. We had community voting.
Okay, and have you spoken to any of the schools about this? Have you made any contact with them, or is that going to be the next step after tonight?
Yeah, that is the next step.
Okay.
So
Thanks.
I have a question. I think the e-waste drop-off component is a great addition to
Okay.
this, to bring people in and to advertise that. The student challenge is great. The movie, do you have a movie in mind that you
I
are
do.
thinking of?
Yeah. I'm also going to look for another one to see if I can get more, but I do have a movie in mind, and I think it brings us up to date with where we are sort of socially, culturally, and thinking about environmental issues. Things have changed a lot since 2007 in terms of our understanding. So
Yeah.
Can we know what the name of it is?
So I think that would be something that I think the council would like to, maybe weigh in on a little bit, not to micromanage, but to kind of, get a sense, because I know in the past we didn't, that council just, because like I said, it really was like the Wild West back in 2007, 2008, because there was just not as much awareness about global warming and something. I heard on the radio just this evening that January has gone down in the record books as being the warmest January in the history of record keeping. So, whatever that means,
So I think
the science is there. And I know that in the environmental programs committee, we threw out names about the potential speakers. We've got so many speakers, so many residents who are in the clean tech industry right now that would want to be part of something like this that never existed back in 2007, 2008, 2009. So
one of the things I'd like to do is send out an invitation to people who think they have something that might be of interest at this expo to be able to put it forth. They may not be companies or, at a state where we know about them. So I want to offer, people a chance to volunteer to participate. But you do bring up an interesting point, which is that back when we did them before, there were a whole different set of rules and guidelines as to how committees act and how they operate. And now I feel, while I know we could do it, I don't know if doing it the way I'm used to doing it conforms to our rules. So I think that's an issue in terms of, if it's only 9 weeks away, and we need to make some decisions, and we would need to move really quickly, and we wouldn't be able to wait a month for approval of this or that. So we just need to have a sense of whether we're working on it or we're not, because
there's lots more checks and balances, I guess, and structure around what our committees can and can't do, and in the whole realm of system and finance department, and then we did, 6-8 years ago. So all of that, I think we understand, and we want to make sure that we follow all the rules and the proper procedures of, if we approve this budget, how that is going to be utilized, and try to make it as easy as possible to implement this, because what we're asking a volunteer committee person in a volunteer committee to do is to put on a huge event, or maybe a small event. But it is, if we do something, we could make it, substantial and meaningful. So, yes.
What is the movie?
She didn't say.
I don't know what we asked.
She's got another one in mind, I think.
I want to make sure I can get it. There's some access issues, so I'd like to, do a little more work on.
Well, I think we'd like to know what the movie is before we.
Also, I'd like to do that at Menlo Atherton High School, at the PAC.
At the Performing Arts.
Right, so that we're not limited to the very badly lit pavilion kind of
Right.
movie screen situation. So it's a nicer experience for people, and to be able to have a conversation afterwards.
I think that's really thinking big, and I think that if you think big like that and put it out there, and it's a compelling, timely, movie, you can get people to come, and that would be something that we should at least aspire to.
But if there's an idea on a second movie, and she said that there was one she had in mind, but then she was trying to get another one. Can we have the names of the two? Yes, I think it's a reasonable question.
Well, again, I think, I don't know what they are, but I think there's royalty rights or something.
I have comments, but I know we're not comments.
No, just your comments, yeah.
We're just waiting for a public to listen.
Oh, shall we open it up for public comments? Our public kind of left. You have one public here.
Any ideas on movies?
I'm open to suggestions if you have ideas.
Maybe we could get video clips of the climate conference.
So if you're bringing it back,
Yes.
you are, so we're out.
Go ahead.
All right,
All your questions.
I really didn't, Valerie did a great job with my questions, and so, just a little comment related to movies. I understand the global, but I personally would like to see a little more influence on Atherton, so flying a little level lower, because, I think that what our goal here is to try to reach, our people, the town of Atherton, and trying to get them in a better role in a lot of ways to make things better, be it building, whatever it is. And if it was a movie on, the transportation of coal and the dust of coal, I don't think half of us would probably really want that, but it's probably a great movie, and I know that's of interest to other people, but I don't see the interest here. So I would like to just fly a little lower.
Yeah, so it's a really great comment, and I think we forgot to mention that one of the things that we want to do as a way to help promote the event and bring people in is to do a survey at sort of an early stage, like several weeks out. Get residents to kind of take a survey that sort of gives them a chance to see where they are, gives us a chance to see where they are in terms of their understanding about issues, and then have them, talk about what their interests are, what they'd like to learn, and then follow it up after the event and after the students have done their showcase and had their poster boards that educate the community to see if there's been any kind of shift in some awareness or understanding. So yes, I definitely want to make it relevant to Atherton residents, and I want to bring it back to the energy and the issues that we have faced here as a town, but there's also the big picture as to what's happening globally, and I think that's something that excites the students more. So there's a balance that we have to strike.
My comment about the survey, and I think I raised it at the Environmental Relations Committee, who's going to write it, how long is it going to be? It can be, a survey is very difficult to put together.
2 pages I wrote it, and it's already been submitted, so they're reviewing it.
Yeah, she emailed it to both of us.
Oh, I must have missed that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
You're not on top of it.
I think that the
basically, anything that could be considered advocating a position has to be approved by the city council before a committee advocates. And the referee, I do not know who wrote this, but the referee is me. So I don't want to be the referee. I think it really should be the city council. If it's a movie that takes a position, whether it's controversial or not, I think the city council should have the ability to say yes or no ahead.
So, yeah, I think that's kind of, you know, where it is. So, and you can run it through the city manager and then, you know, and then send it all to us, but, you know, that kind of a thing.
So should I send the selection of movies and options to you, and then you'll run it by them? Okay, got it.
Are you suggesting that it has to be a formal?
I think it has, it sounds to me, it says approval of the city council, and that means a meeting. If the city manager would send that out for approval, that's a round violation.
We have the meeting coming up on.
Yeah, like we could slip it on.
It could even be
We've
on
got
the study
meetings
session.
every other week.
It could be on the study session agenda coming up.
So.
2 weeks or what, 3 weeks?
2 weeks.
Anyway, okay, so are we ready to
Well, I have some
accept
comments.
this?
I have some comments.
Okay.
So first off, it's very comprehensive, and thank you for putting it together. So and it looks like a lot of the stuff that will be there will be fun, and I personally think that bringing in the different agencies as well as some private industry people that have things to sell and educate, I think is a great idea. Having it over at the park or wherever we decide to have it is good, similar to what we did with the emergency. That all said, a week of activity seems like it's awful lot.
It's not really a week. It's like 1 or 2 nights leading up to the Sunday. I think we have to do it on a Sunday, not a Saturday. So it'd be a movie, maybe a panel, and then but we haven't figured out.
Okay, because when I read it, it seemed to imply it was, okay, because I got the impression reading it that it was like a week of activity, and my first thought was, okay, we're having Earth Day, not Earth Week, but I can see if you're having like student activities, like a science fair, that would be one day, and the parents want to go, and the kids are there, and so so a couple day activity sounds good, and I think that's good. And my other comment was, if it was too long, then I think that you would lose some of the participation.
Yeah, no, I agree.
People won't go. They might go to the start, but I think it's important that you go ahead and get the schools lined up as quickly as possible and make sure that the teachers can then put that into their programs.
Yeah.
That the kids do it.
The kids are the lead time. They need time to work on a project like this. They can't just get it, with a month to go and be able to get anything done.
Yeah. Now,
having a junior, I know that.
We'll have to talk to Recology about having an e-waste drop-off. I don't know if we can schedule something, so.
They've already said they don't have that availability for that particular week.
Yeah, so we are going to have.
Oh, that they do not.
So we are going to have close to that a shred event and a compost giveaway, and we can have an e-thing, and maybe all we could do then is maybe publicize it, which would be a good idea, because we are trying to have those things every 2 times a year, and they've been very successful.
So that's good to know, and I could go to another group that's a commercial group, but I don't know that we need to if you're going to have one scheduled close by.
I think the soonest was actually June. That Recology was able to commit to. So that might be, if you want to get closer, you might need to go to another commercial vendor for the e-waste.
There are many, so I could do that. I think there's Green Elephant, there's all these different groups, so.
Yeah, I think that going to another vendor would be good.
Oh, really?
Okay. And then, so as you raise the money, I guess the money will then be documented and go to the city, as I understand it, and then you'll be saying how you want to spend it, and the city will be working with you on that. Is that how it's going to be?
We would process any invoice requests or checks or things like that. For contributions, we would probably just do a form, they fill it out, give it to the town, and then that goes strong against the request.
Okay.
Pretty straightforward.
Pretty structured.
Pretty structured.
All right.
Flexible enough to allow them to do the activity.
And it'd be good if, one of the things we can do is just kind of keep track of how many people go to each of the events. So, you know, I know you have that for the others, but you didn't bring it, but it'd be good for us to know, and then we can judge how we want to expand or whatever next year. But the post-event communications, I think that's a good idea, but I would recommend, just like we did at the park on National Night Out and things like that, that at the events you have people fill out cards and maybe you have the speakers ask people to do that as opposed to send out another survey or whatever, because we actually do a lot of surveys around here and I think that people stop responding to them. So if you can get them to give you their feedback while they're at the sessions, I think would be a positive thing.
Maybe we can get other council members to weigh in on all of your directives.
Well,
Because you're like
Well, I was
firing
going through
all
my
of your
comments.
directives. But you're like firing at her all these directives to do. And what we need is council,
Okay,
you know,
that's
agreement.
fine. That's
So,
no problem.
I know.
But all
you know,
those things
it's
were
not just
suggestions.
your decision to
Well-
say, do this, do this, do this.
Well, I'm just saying what I think, okay, as I do.
We accept your help. You're welcome to volunteer for our committee.
You can come do an account if you'd like.
Well, I think you get a clicker.
Yeah, what, I don't think that's in our budget.
Okay, go on.
All right.
That was it, that was the last page.
Okay, so I'd like to bring it back and get a motion to approve the budget of $5,000 for the Earth Day event.
So I have two comments.
You've already had your comments.
But my question, those were questions.
You've already had it twice.
All right. I don't think that's cool. No more questions? No more comments?
Do I have a motion?
Did that.
Vice Mayor Lempress, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay, are you, do you have any other questions? We've gone around and around several times.
I do have a quick comment. One, timing's obviously critical, and then two, Valerie has made a lot of comments about community, which I completely agree with. But remembering that it's Aspen money in this, I want to make sure we keep it focused as much as possible on the Aspen community, and not go. Just be aware that we're using Aspen funds for it, and we're not spreading them too thinly outside of Atherton.
Okay, so
That's my comment.
do you want to make your comments?
I was
You're
just
kind
gonna
of pouting.
I didn't really comment, I just asked questions because I didn't know any of the history. And I had an opportunity to have Valerie here, so I actually got some substance history because I had future comment related to the budget, so I
Okay,
didn't know that.
all right. So
this
I
was
thought you had
support.
already weighed in on that.
No, it was kind of support for my ultimate comment related to the budget.
Super, okay.
So I will say, I really do appreciate the fact that, you know, you listened to what we were saying and the components in your program here. To me, it's just a little loose, and I was, you know, really all listening to try to figure out how the whole event, I actually took it as one week as well. So I think that trying to figure out if a $5,000 budget was frankly the right amount of funds, knowing that we've been off for a few years. And by what you're saying here, there's a substantial amount of money that we've spent historically, which leads me to try to understand the $5,000 figure, which it makes sense because I do see that you're going to be recycling. I appreciate the fact that you are recycling shirts, bracelets, and light bulbs. So under the E component, it's nice to be recycling. Right? We're reusing product.
Reusing, yeah.
We're using product that's been sitting on the shelf for probably since 2009. So I can appreciate the use because this budget would have been higher. So
It's still a very low budget.
yeah, so I
To
just
put on an event.
think that, you know, the comments that Councilman Whitmer related, just to try to understand when the money comes in, how we're going to fundamentally track it so that we know, because I know that in 2008 we had $5,000 in prizes to kids. So I just think we have to have a component to figure out who we're rewarding, and then as well as trying to track all these people that are going to be at this event to
to see how, because as we future make considerations related to this, I would like to see how we do, how we perform in getting people to follow us in that education component. So, I told you I didn't have to comment. Is that your message?
Those are really good comments. I'm so glad you said those. Yes.
Thank
Do you want to increase the budget?
I thought you
Because
wanted to
it's
increase the budget, yeah.
I thought you were gonna make a motion to increase the budget, because I gotta tell you, this is a really small budget to do
Well, I
what
was
you're
just-
asking them to do.
Well, in retrospect, in looking at the other budgets for other committees, I was concerned that this was such a large figure. But she sure shut me up when she said, you know,
Exactly.
10, 20, and 30. I'm like, whoa,
And
5 is a
plus,
deal.
there's a fundraising to
Right,
pay for these additional prizes
But it
that
makes-
did not come out of the town's money.
And I think it makes more sense now, and I can understand, and I do appreciate the fact that, you know, I know it sounds, we're in a more reasonable figure versus historic until we can figure out where we go from here. So I just had some nice comments, and you
So,
didn't want me to say
are you
anything.
ready to make a motion?
I'm ready to make. Are you kidding?
You've had your comments.
I haven't said one word, excuse me.
Oh my goodness.
I haven't said a word on this issue.
She's been ignoring us all night.
But on the right
Everybody's
side,
all around.
I think that it's extremely reasonable budget for what you're proposing, and I think that it sounds like a great program. I think that if you wanted to reveal the names of the two movies, you wouldn't have to come, you could probably approve them both, and you can get whatever you can get, and you wouldn't have to come back to us for a future approval. But it sounds like, based on the policy that we have, it's gonna have to come back to us for an approval if you're gonna do a movie.
All right, well, the movie that I really want to have is called Pandora's Promise. It was filmed by Robert Stone, who's really well-known film producer, and I've seen it. I've seen him give a presentation on it and talk about it. He tends to like to give people a quick survey at the beginning and then at the end see how their minds have changed after they've seen this movie. And there's a very good trailer of it on YouTube that you can
I
access.
think Councilman Winder's trying to pull it up as we speak.
You could pull up the trailer and it's like 2 or 3 minutes and it's very interesting. So Robert Stone unfortunately is
now, I'm just looking it up.
is not available, as far as I know, unless we can fly him out here, which I don't think we can, but one of the actors in the movie, or experts who's interviewed in the movie, is available, is local, and may be available. I'm trying to find out if he can make it. So that's uncertain. But I'd like to have an interactive component so that it's not just a movie, but it's actually discussion. So that's more engaging, and I think will have more meaning. So that's what I'm trying to do. And if I can't get somebody from this movie, I might have to go with a different movie. But I think it's a great movie. And it's won some awards, and it's a couple years old, so it's not like it's risque, I don't think. I think it would be considered, you know.
Controversial.
I don't think it's too controversial.
Well, let's look at the reviews. I could read a brief synopsis of it.
It seems to be a lot about it.
Sure.
Yeah, because
That would help.
it's not just.
We're gonna approve that, or power, and I think if you choose not to use that, then you're gonna have to come back and get approval.
Right.
So the brief synopsis, and it's just from IMDb website. Feature-length documentary about the history and future of nuclear power. The film explores how and why mankind's most feared and controversial technological discovery is now passionately embraced by many of those who once led the charge against it. Operating as history, cultural meditation, and contemporary exploration, Pandora's Promise aims to inspire a serious and realistic debate over what is, without question, the most important question of our time. How do we continue to power modern civilization without destroying it?
Well, we don't.
And it's not part of the renewable energy program. It was ruled out when we asked that question.
We did. They said no nukes. Yeah. No. So whether or not it's immediately relevant to today, although maybe
it raises the right questions. Let me put it that way. I mean, it allows you to evaluate and understand some of the debate that is going on about clean energy.
Clean energy.
Yes. Which it is. Nuclear is clean energy.
What was the other one?
Well, you know, I don't really have my mindset on another one, so I'm open to suggestions, and if there's another one that you like better, let me know, but I think this one is a very powerful movie.
Michael, did you hear that discussion?
Yeah, I sure did.
Okay.
And I mean, I've heard something about the movie. Actually, it's not a fairly well-known movie, I believe, Pandora's Promise. And I guess my question is there a concern that we are standing behind every assertion in the movie if the city authorizes it in some way, or?
I think that would be the concern, that if we present a movie that, you know, the town is somehow advocating or, you know, supporting that. And I think that's...
Yeah, and could that not be addressed if we wanted to with some kind of just quick statement at the beginning?
I mean, there are always disclaimers. Our counselor knows about disclaimers too, but anyway. So what is the general feeling of the council about this?
Well, I thought it was a mistake for ruling out nuclear energy in our clean energy thing, because it is a valid energy source. And it is used extensively throughout Europe, who in many cases is greener than we are.
Mm-hmm. So you thought it was a mistake to rule it out from our clean energy?
Yeah, I said that the night that they were here.
Right. And you said,
Well, that's what they said.
This is the Peninsula Clean Energy people.
Right, right.
I think that we want to make clear that whatever is being shown is not representing the position of the council, because it clearly isn't. And we can do that with a disclaimer, just as Mike suggested. And if you don't need to have the approval now, if on the movie piece you can have the approval the first Wednesday of March, and that'll work for you, then you can look at the trailer that's available, and we can decide. There's, in my personal opinion, there's no doubt that nuclear energy is clean. Nuclear power is clean. It's very clean, but it presents other issues that are contaminating issues.
It would certainly be provocative.
So I will say that when we showed An Inconvenient Truth and Who Killed the Electric Car, those were considered provocative then. But they were kind of opening up people's minds to what the issues are and what's been going on. Who Killed the Electric Vehicle was a real condemnation of business and business practices. We've sort of grown up from there. I would not want to show something that is behind the times, behind the state of awareness of what the leading environmentalists are thinking. So this is representing the direction of the environmental movement, and that's why I want to show it. I have a CD, you're welcome to borrow it.
Okay. Well, let's move on from making that decision at this time.
Well, I'm prepared to make a motion to support the budget allocation of $5,000 for the EPC Earth Day program as proposed.
Okay. There's a motion. Do I have a second? Anyone want to make a second?
You're on the committee, why don't you make it?
I'd be happy to make it. I want to.
I'm happy to second it, Elizabeth.
Okay, Vice Mayor Lembris is making the second. So I have a motion and a second. Are there any abstentions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So.
Excuse me, it has to be roll call.
Oh, so counselor tells me because we have off-site council member, we have to do a roll call. So City Clerk, you want to do the roll call?
Councilmember DeGolia?
Aye.
Councilmember Weiss? Councilmember Whitmer?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lemprus?
Aye.
Mayor Lewis?
Aye. So that motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Valerie, and, we're gonna put a call out for volunteers, so as many hands will make, light the work.
And let us know, time for the staff to notify us prior to the first Wednesday of March, when you decide on the movie.
Okay.
It sounds like we've got a policy where we actually need to formally approve.
We'll bring whatever survey we've got, as well as the movie question back when we get to the agenda.
The survey. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. So, okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Item number 16, provide direction regarding relocation of Knox Preschool within Holbrook Palmer Park. This is a pretty lengthy discussion, I think. Did we do the chicken?
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, at the end of the chicken hearing, we just said there was no action that needed to be taken, we'll come back. It would be much easier on staff if we continued it to the next meeting so that we don't have to renotice everything.
Okay, so I'd like to continue the chicken hearing.
Motion.
Here we did a motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, I moved and we have a second. We have to do a roll call vote. City Clerk, roll call vote for the chicken continuance.
Councilmember DeGolia?
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss?
Absolutely.
Councilmember Whitmer?
Sure.
Vice Mayor Lemprus?
Aye.
Mayor Lewis?
Yes, okay. Thank you for that
Thank you.
clarification. Okay. So, Knox Play School. Mike Kashawati, do you want to tee this up for us, please?
Sure. Mayor Lewis, members of the City Council, the purpose of this item is to have a discussion and to get council direction regarding the potential relocation of Knox Preschool within Holbrook Palmer Park. Holbrook Palmer Park master plan was adopted by the City Council in May of 2015, and that master plan identified three location options for Knox Preschool. One option was to leave it in its current location. A second option was to relocate it to the northwest corner of the park adjacent to the Gilmore House. And the third option was to utilize the Gilmore House for the preschool. The adopted park master plan did not come up with a preference, but it did recommend that the three options be studied further in terms of program needs, utility requirements, and cost estimates, which could then be reviewed by the City Council for policy discussions regarding the preschool location options. Accordingly, staff developed some budget level cost estimates to relocate the preschool to the location adjacent to the Gilmore House. In doing those cost estimates, staff looked at two different types of construction alternatives. One was a conventional wood frame construction, and the other was a modular building. And as identified in your staff report, the estimated construction costs for the buildings and site work range from $1.4 to $2.1 million. In putting this together, staff, worked closely with Susan Knox to make sure we understood the programming needs, the current size and use of the facility. So, what we estimated was basically a replication of what is currently exists at the park. After completing the study, we met with Susan Knox to review our cost estimates and our assumptions, and based on that, Ms. Knox clearly indicated that the estimated cost was beyond the financial capability and viability of the preschool, and so therefore we are here to have a policy discussion with the City Council. The various policy questions and considerations are outlined in your staff report, but to kind of summarize it into kind of the three core considerations here is, one would be to maintain the preschool in its existing location versus relocating the preschool as identified in the park master plan. Another would be if relocating the preschool and maintaining preschool operations at Holbrook Palmer Park is a council priority, is the town willing to participate in the relocation costs? And if the council does not support financial participation, then how long should the preschool be allowed to occupy in its current site? Just for information, the lease with Knox Preschool expires in October or in August of 2016. Okay. And then also Susan Knox is here this evening to, answer council questions.
Okay, bring it back to council for any clarifying questions for Mike Kashawagi.
No, I got my questions answered in the city manager's letter.
Okay, and Vice Mayor Lumpers, do you have any clarifying questions to ask for Mike Kashawagi?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question. So just I'm trying to understand the difference in the estimates that you provided in the December 10th report and the table that you included under the analysis and staff report, which are quite different, right? In December, the range was what you just stated, 1.4 million to 2.1 million, and it looks like the current I see, you didn't count soft costs.
Correct.
In the prior one, and you're counting soft costs in this one.
Correct.
I see, otherwise there's no difference.
Okay. Are there any members of the public, would you like to speak on what your position is on this?
How do you feel?
How do you feel?
Hi, I'm
Your-
Susan.
Your lease comes up August 2016?
Yes. In the past few years, we have just renewed it for a year, waiting to see what the master plan was going to be. So it's been a couple years that we've done that. I think just renewed it for a year. So that's obviously an option too. I am currently re-enrolling children for next year, so I'm hoping that we'll be able to renew. I mean, I'm happy where we are. I like the location. The buildings are satisfactory now that we've patched them up. I think that this originated because the first portable was built in the 70s and has outlived its lifespan. We did re-roof it a few years ago. We've patched and redone the linoleum. We patched up, for pest control, things like, that have been issues, but it's pretty functionable. And then the newer, so we have the two buildings, the two portable buildings. The second one was built in 2001, and it's had minor, things done to it, but that one's in pretty good shape. I appreciate that a new location would maybe be better traffic flow, and I've heard that you want to have the space where we are currently for open space. I understand all that, but $2 million is a lot of money to move it's a preschool. We serve a lot of families. We serve a lot of Atherton families. This is our 18th year. We've served at least 30 Atherton families every year. Our first 4-year-olds are graduating from college this year, which is really exciting. They're 21 and 22-year-olds. So I think we've done a good job, and we're a good partner, and we serve the community really well. And I'd like to stay. As far as financially, it's a lot of money that I don't own the property, so it's a lot to ask of me to pay for that type of thing. In 2000, Mike, what was it? 2001, we built the new building. So when I took over the lease in '98, we just had the old building, and I paid for the building of the second building. And then I didn't pay rent for 5 years. And so that was sort of the way that we made it up. And then I turned the building over to the town in 2006, I guess it was, and started paying rent on both buildings then. So.
And so question 2, what are your plans for the future, long term?
I think, I just threw out there, I'm intending to stay for 10 years if possible. After that, I don't know. My youngest kids were 2 and 4 years old when we started the school, so they're out of the house. But I plan to keep it going for a while longer. And I think even then, if I were ready to move on, I would try to keep it going and maybe pass it on to somebody. Because I think it's a really great resource for the community. And, you know, we have alumni coming back to visit all the time, and it's just been a wonderful community thing.
So, a question, do you think that the business model for having preschool in the park is compelling enough to be sustainable?
I think it is. You know, we use the park during the day. I mean, we don't often take the kids over to the main park because we do have a nice fenced-in yard, but a lot of times the families will. When they pick their children up at noon, they'll go to the park and use the park, and it's a nice location to have the families come. So,
Any other questions, anyone?
How many families do you have represented altogether? Is it 30 or from Atherton?
I think we have about 110 altogether. So that's a little bit of a deceptive number for you because I have kids that just come 2 mornings a week and some that come just 3 mornings a week. And we just have like a mommy and me class that's 1 afternoon a week. So overall, we have about 110, 115 families. But at any given time, the most we have is 64 children on site. We have 4 classrooms.
And then in terms of Atherton participation, it sounds like...
I mean, I'd have to print out a list, but in past we've had up to 50 families when our enrollment was a little bit higher. Now I think it's probably close to 30. And some families have more than 1 child there. Yeah.
Have you seen a decrease with the public schools offering preschool or primarily
There have been
you're
a
staying
lot
the
of changes.
preschool?
There have been a lot of changes over the past 5 years when they changed the kindergarten. Well, with the economy, one, we're just part-day preschool. We're not full-day daycare.
Right.
So we don't necessarily serve families that have 2 parents working. I mean, if we do, they generally have a sitter or a nanny or a grandma or somebody. So we're really just part-day. The economy's affected us a little bit. And the changing kindergarten cutoff date, which, started changing in 2011, 12, 13, 14, 2014, it became September 1st. A lot of the public schools then had TK. Now some of them don't, like Laurel's not, the Menlo Park School District doesn't have it anymore. So over the years, there have been changes back and forth, and I think a lot more TKs have popped up around the area, either private or, like Redwood City has it, Palo Alto has it. So there's been a lot of changes based on that.
So the majority of your kids, though, are in the younger brackets
We
then?
serve, the youngest children we serve are 18 months, and that would be with a parent. That's the mommy and me. And we
Okay.
have children that are 5, 5.5.
Okay.
Yeah, young 5s basically go, they didn't quite make
They didn't make the cutoff.
They turned 5 in September.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
So, what's the pleasure of the council to discuss on this? We have a policy decision to make, whether or not we make it regular tonight. We can continue this to have more time to kind of consider the options, whether or not we think that it's worth it to the town to invest in a new building in the front of the park, as diagrammed in the park master plan, to allow for more open space in the back area, or continue to use it for the grant, or repurpose it somehow, if the preschool at some time in the future ceases to be, things like that. Rick?
Well, okay, so I think this is a big subject. I think that, we approved a master plan for the park. And the master plan for the park opened up the space next to the carriage house as part of a long-term plan for the carriage house and that area. And I think we approved that. I think we should expect to go forward with that. I actually think it's the right thing for the park. I think that having the place site, there'd be some other work that we'd need to do if we were going to do that. That's what's in the master plan. So to date, that's what we've approved. As the liaison with the Park and Rec Commission or committee, I am very aware that in the course of the discussion of that, the one thing that they really in the context of talking about where the play school was contemplated to move, it was contemplated that we would put in a structure that could be used by the planning and permit department, so the building department. And the Park and Rec committee talked about that and were very clear that they didn't want modular trailers. Now, given this analysis and the costs that are here, I think we should have them talk about that again, because in fact, if they're really adamantly opposed to trailers and we want to go along with their position, then it creates a really hard position for the play school. I don't think that the town should subsidize the play school to the cost of $2 million. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. We've got 30 families that are going there. It doesn't make sense to me that we would pay $2 million to enable that. So I don't know where we go with that. I would not want to just move the play school out. Their contract comes up this year. We should give them, there should be some time, because maybe there's enough interest from families that have been there and families that are there that there could be some capital campaign. But that's going to take a long time, and that's a big effort that probably some of those families would need to be involved in. And I don't know where that goes, but I think we need to give them a fair amount of time.
I almost see it as a real estate deal, the town, a real estate developer, and then lease that property at an income stream over time, and that it's not really the responsibility of the tenant to pay for it going forward. So I think that's a policy decision that we have to take a look at, because the building would then be ours and could be repurposed for any number of things, an art center or another town or another tenant, or another play school, kindergarten. So we'll go around the table here.
Thank you. So I'm going to look at it a little differently than Rick. Although I agree, we did do the park master plan. I think that the biggest plan we got going on is the civic center design, and I think that component should be driving our interest in what we're telling our residents. Do we have money to build buildings in the park and potentially sublease them out to the Knox Play School? I think that there's got to be an amount of responsibility on our part to treat somebody that has been in our park in 18 years is a long time, and I think that if we extend this for a year and allow her to have the ability to have another year in there and readdress this as we're moving forward with the civic center component, we're going to start coming together with needing to make better decisions as we move forward with the civic center design. We can move more in a direction with the parks master plan, but also being considerate of people that are in there. So, she's comfortable in the facility that she has. Obviously, we maintain with any health and safety issues that are in there and address those. But, addressing the tier, because there may be that tier that, next year when we're farther along in this component of the civic center, and we have to address where we put the employees that we displaced, there may be, a reason why we put buildings out there to house the people that we then displaced from here, and then subsequently 2 or 3 years down the line, we're having a discussion with Susan related to the school and relocating the buildings that we put there for our needs, and yet, which would make sense. But, we're just a little bit before the cart. So I think that if we just slow the roll a little bit, still staying consistent with our park master plan, but being considerate if we have, I think would be really the big picture in making us better stewards of taxpayers' money and being responsible. We're not out spending money we frankly are trying to make other decisions with right now, so.
Good comments, very good comments.
So, my comments are, first off, I think, for 30 residents, 35 residents, $2 million investment that really we wouldn't be able to see a return on investment, I think is not a good use of taxpayer dollars. I realize you could put other activities in there, however, we're going to be constrained on what activities we would put in there. So an art museum or something like that, that's not going to pay that's not going to pay rent. Okay? So it would just be a museum or an art exhibit location. So it would just be another building. We heard very clearly that they're happy with where they are right now. The fundraising on Carriage House really hasn't started. They haven't even gotten the permit for doing the historical register, so there's not any need or urgency to move them from that location. As we heard also, there may be, a sunsetting of that school out there, that operation. So I think that, we have an obligation to keep that building safe and to keep the children that are using that building safe. That's our building, and we need to do the proper maintenance and continue to support the play school as it's there for the next number of years. So to give some assurance that they would be there, I personally would be okay with if we bring the lease back of entertaining a multi-year lease as we had at one time. I just feel also as Carrie had indicated too. I mean, we've got some very major projects going on, okay, that take substantial priority over putting more money into the park. And while we want the Park and Rec's input, we're the ones who were responsible for spending the money, not Park and Rec. Of course, they're going to say it's not their money. You say, sure, no problem. We'd love to have the park enhanced and build a new building and things like that. It's our responsibility to make that decision. We're the ones who are held accountable for doing that. So I think that really we have a lot of other things going on. We've got not only the drainage master plan, very appropriate since it's raining today, but the Civic Center, and if we go to the last item, the funding is going slow, and so we need to be responsible with every dollar that we have here, and so I think that really a discussion on should we build another building or what should we do here? Maybe we should spend $2 million or $3 million to build another something in front of the park or next to the Gilmore House. I think is not appropriate at this time, and I will re-echo my comments on the Gilmore House. I'm not interested in any way of moving the police praise school into that facility. We're letting our officers and some of our other outlying employees here that have long commutes to use that. And we might need that to provide to another high-ranking city official as an incentive for them to come here. So I don't think we should be at this point in time giving that away. So I think that we should plan on a multi-year. I would like to recommend that we, in the future, plan on a multi-year engagement so Mrs. Knox can plan her enrollment. We leave the facility where it is now. But we have to make sure that the building is safe, and I know in the past there have been a lot of questions about that, and it did need some substantial maintenance, but I'm happy to hear that it's been improved, but we just need to stay on top of it because we don't want anybody to get hurt there. So thank you.
Vice Mayor Lempres, it's
Yes.
your turn.
I think that I agree that ultimately the park master plan lays out a good plan, and that it would be preferable to have the play school moved up, what I'll call towards the front of the park to help traffic flow and to open up some green space there ultimately. But that probably more significant. Right now, the time may not be right to start talking about specific dollars, and that we should do is figure out a way to put this on an appropriate schedule where we can make the trade-offs that we might need to make relative to other projects that are going on in the town for a dollar commitment of this size. And then in the meantime, as Bill just said, we should make sure that the current structure is safe, but that we should consider being there for a while. I don't know. Bill made reference to a multi-year commitment. I don't know what that means, but I think I'd be comfortable with us committing to stay there a while longer in order to permit us to just get a little more organized, make any trade-offs we need to make in the budget, and come out with a well-thought-out plan. But ultimately, I still believe the long-term solution is the one laid out in the park master plan, which is we should have a new building that should be located closer to what I'm calling the front of the park.
Okay. So I agree. All very, very good comments and discussion perspectives. In a perfect world, I would love to see the Knox School moved up to the front of the park as the park master plan has been designed. I think it makes a lot of good sense for the park overall. The funds to do and invest in improving the park are not funds that can be used for the Civic Center, even though I know that our Civic Center is a very, very prime focus, and I am laser focused on trying to get the Civic Center completed in a design that is going to be compelling to the residents who do want to donate and see that reality that project come to reality. So we can't mix our metaphors here, thinking that any funds that we spend in the park are somehow being taken away from the Civic Center project, because we cannot spend any public funds on the Civic Center project because we've been prevented from doing that. The Gilmore House being used in its capacity at this time, I think is serving our town really, really well. And I would not want to displace that or disrupt that to renovate the Gilmore House for the play school. And although it is only maybe serving 30 families of Atherton, I don't think that's the point. I think the point is that they are paying rent. It's not that they are being subsidized by Atherton, and building a new structure that would be owned by the town in perpetuity to be used in any way, shape, or form would be an asset of the town and not a subsidy. It would be because that new building, that structure, would be rented and would create rental income. So it's not a subsidy that we're building it for the Knox School specifically and only, and giving it to them and subsidizing. So I don't see where that argument or position is valid. But it seems like we are kind of in a cart before the horse a little bit. I'm just looking at, we're going to get to our budget and we analysis, and we do have budget items that are allocated for park improvements. I don't think those are budget items that are specifically budgeted for the building or new building. And the numbers did come in quite high, much higher than I was expecting them to come in. Because the size of the buildings are what, 4,500 square feet?
4,300.
4,300 square feet, yeah. And I don't think a modular building is something that anybody would want. And even, we've done modular buildings, and we don't want to do that. We want to build something that is going to stand the test of time a little bit more. But my recommendation would be to, now that the holes in the floors have been patched up and kids aren't gonna fall through, and the safety issues have been taken care of in the existing, that we should at least leave it for another year. I understand the merits of maybe doing a multi-year, but I think that we need to keep the flexibility.
Perhaps I could summarize the
Yes.
direction I've heard on this one so far,
Yeah.
since there's no action necessary. Master plan's a good plan, but doesn't mean we have to implement it right now. With respect to Knox Place, Knox lease to come back in June or July of this year for renewal, consideration of a single year or a multi-year option. 2-year option might align well with the Civic Center staging needs, so that might be a possibility. Put relocation planning on hold, but continue with any T&I for the structure that relates to health and safety.
That's good with me. Any comment on that? Does that summarize what your thoughts are?
Perfect.
Anybody comments? Public comments? Oh, you know, we already had public comments. I'm sorry. We did. Okay. Vice Mayor Lemprus, any other final comments?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. So we're gonna move on then? Okay, good. Robert, you're up.
Before we move on to this, Robert does have a 10-slide deck. In the interest of time, if you'd just like him to talk through the report, he can do that as well.
I've read the report.
I don't need this slides.
There you go, Robert.
Robert, you did good.
He did have a lot of work. We'll email it out to you if you like.
Did you do a lot of work?
Yes.
Oh, man.
Show us.
Just real quick.
Just go through them quick.
Oh, I
Or
just
not.
need to.
It's 9:30.
We're gonna sign on the web so if you
What
want.
time is
Yeah,
it
it
in
is.
New Jersey?
Just real quick.
Did you sign on the web?
Tomorrow.
I can't see it. Where's the?
Any questions? Excellent presentation.
You're up there.
Good job, Robert.
PowerPoint now.
Otherwise, I do have a question.
There we
on-
Well, that was your computer.
I was-
Okay. No.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, Robert, this is in your time.
Yeah, so close. Yes.
You have
So
5
far.
minutes to go through your back.
Robert, just ask if there's any questions. I think you're here.
Yeah, if you all, I mean, if there's any questions.
Good.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you all know that we've had a new fiscal year 15-16 budget. We projected a healthy fiscal outlook. We've implemented some council priorities. We did the enhanced operational needs, the paying down long-term liabilities, and contributions to capital infrastructure needs. So with that, I'm going to say that our property tax, we project about $595,000 additional in revenue this year, in this at mid-year. Of that, $287,000 is a projected increase in secured property taxes. So that brings us up to $6.9 million, up 4.3%. The property tax revenues are the unsecured property tax. It's up about $19,000. The SB 813 is supplemental tax, $191. That's up $20,000, $943,000 for property tax in lieu. It's up about $38,000, and then the property transfer tax is up about $24,000, projecting. So the overall increase in property tax is about $389,000, or 4.6%. So you can see our budget. We had budgeted $8.4 million. We anticipate to have $8.8 million in property tax revenue category. The next other revenue that we use, but we rely on as a limited funding source is ERAF. And as you can see in the last couple of years, we've implemented the use of ERAF towards one-time capital projects or contributions. We contributed $1 million to OPEB in fiscal year 13-14. The 14-15 ERAF for $1.1 million we contributed to OPEB and to workers' comp negative equity. So again, we'll continue to use it for a reduction of long-term liabilities, specific of one-time capital projects. This year's budget was at $1.2 million. Actual revenue coming in is a little less, about $133,000 less to $1,066,000.
Which is a bad sign.
It's a very bad sign. We need to readjust our budget projections.
Well,
You know, we used to have, it's what, 750,000?
We used to budget at 700,000. I think in over the past couple of years, it's been coming in higher. So this was the first year we decided, well, let's just budget it higher.
We don't budget this as a revenue.
Right.
Well, that's good.
So this is a one-time revenue. Yes, it is down, and I think the reason it's down is because the state school funding formula has changed. We do discuss this with amongst other agencies here in San Mateo County with SAMFOG members, and we meet with the county controller's office. We think that yes, there is a decline. We think there will be a slow in the decline of excess ERAF. One, because the property tax growth in San Mateo County is continuing to grow, and so the way the ERAF works is first for funding of schools, the property taxes in that area pays for school funding. Any backfill that is required that's not enough through the property taxes comes from ERAF. So we see it this year that there's a decline, but we feel that that decline of it will slow down because property taxes are growing, and we think that with the growth of property taxes, that will be sufficient for now until the state keeps changing. They can change the school funding formula every year, but right now we think probably in this next budget, maybe we'd be safe. Let's just do $1 million, and we'll continue to look at it. But again, we're going to use this as one-time revenue. We won't rely on it, but it's a limited resource of revenue that we should rely on to pay down long-term liabilities, like coming up the CalPERS unfunded liability, or one-time capital projects. And as you can see, we've used it. We've contributed about $2.2 million of ERAF towards other uses. We've put in about $5 million in OPEB trust. We paid down $433,000 to the workers' comp, negative equity reserve. So we've been using that as one-time revenue, and it's helping us in those areas. So we suggest that we continue to do that until we find out that it's no longer a revenue source towards the cities. So right now, the total revenues is we project in the staff report is $595,000. We've budgeted $12.6 million. Now at mid-year, it's projected at $13.2 million, a 4.7 overall increase. Majority of that increase is the $389 in property taxes, about $131,000 in sales tax. That's because of the triple flip now has gone away. So the bonds that the state did in 2004, those are paid off, and so now we're getting more our triple flip back, and that 0.25% in sales tax cities are now getting back. So based on in your staff report, we went through all our departments and we projected out our expenditures. So there was only 3 items. We required an additional $59,000 in expenditures for the remainder of this fiscal year budget. $6,000 of it is in the administration department. In the staff report, we illustrated that the $6,000 is for the employee recognition program that we would like to implement starting this fiscal year, the remainder of this fiscal year. It's this amount because we're ramping up to take care of employees that have reached certain milestones. In the staff report, there's 18 total employees, and the milestones range from 5-year increments all the way up to 25 years of service. So we'd like to implement that now in this fiscal year. Mind you, going forward in other fiscal years, that this amount won't be as much because we've already taken that implementation this year of recognizing those that serve those milestones. Another police department, we're requesting an increase of $15,500. That's because, as you'll recall, the Willie Mays Field facility at the park, we have a camera system installed there to monitor the field. We want to install another additional 5 cameras, 2 at the entrance and 3 at the parking lots, the east, west, and the pavilion parking lots. So this $15,500 would get the whole park set up with surveillance, would help for deterrent of potential car vandalisms and other crimes. The other increase is $38,000 in the Public Works Department, and it's mainly $21,700 is in the park and park maintenance programs, and that includes $8,000 for the conduit for the event garden, another $11,000 for park maintenance for some changes in some amenities at the facility, at the park facility for the baseball field that we've done, some for water appliances, for some appliances upgrades, We've also did maintenance at the fields. We also require another $16,700 in expenses for the event services contract for the park. As we recall, Catering by Dana does the park program, the renting out of the fields, of the facilities. Of that amount, we project another about $30,000 in revenue. So that expense is in conjunction with our revenue. So with that in mind, we only require a projected increase of expenditures of $59,000. As you can see, it's about a $2.7 million net change of fund balance for the fiscal year. Our total ending fund balance is about $10 million. As you all recall, the $2.4 million of transfers out that we implemented the fiscal year budget, adopted budget. You see our net mid-year adjustments of $59,000 to our original budget $11.7 million. We have a $10,035,000 ending fund balance projected. So what that means is we adjusted our reserve calculation based on our adjusted expenditures of $11.8 million. Total reserve requirement would be $4.6 million, and that would leave us less our total balance. That will leave us $5.3 million of unallocated general fund balance for the fiscal year. That's it. Any questions?
Okay.
I got a question. Did you verify the irrigation and stuff is in that park
Yes.
number?
It's not actually part of this.
Yeah, right.
It's in the CIP report. So it's not a budget amendment.
Okay. And on that one chart, I realize you tried to put graphics up there, but you had that one little chart, and then you had like an aerial view, and it had like a little red dot.
Atherton.
It said Atherton. I mean, what was the value? How did that compare with the words that were up there? Was that just just trying to keep things flowing, or what?
It's a little interest, you know?
Just so you
I
see
can't
where
see-
we're at. It's a pin drop.
So, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Anybody else have a question or comment? No?
I have a question.
Yes, okay.
The card merchant fees, do they increase in park program? What is that?
Yeah.
That was my question too. So
Okay.
Thank you.
So that 2,200, we budget 2,500 for park for merchant card fees, and what that is if someone wants to rent a facility at the park, they can come into the city hall and they can pay for that rental fee by a credit card. That's the only thing that we allow for credit cards. Post office does not allow anything with credit cards. So we see that increase in fees. We're about 2,100 of that right now of the $2,500 budget, and it's just in relation to we have more rental fees. And so because of that, we felt that we need to increase that expenditure line item. So it's going from $2,500 to $5,000 for this budget cycle.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's really a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the fees that the credit card processing charges us for the amount of
If we don't spend it.
Right, if we don't spend it.
It stays in the budget.
Right, exactly.
But he says it's up to $2,100.
Right now, and we increased the budget because of we've already projected that the park revenue fees were going to be higher this fiscal year, so and it's in relation to that.
Seems like that's a lot of transactions, but
It's more transactions in more credit card transactions, other than some would pay by check, and so we wanted to increase the budget portion for that. We'll keep that in check and in line as we see where we end at the end of this fiscal year.
Well, couldn't we just say if you're paying by credit card, it's 1% higher or something like that, like they do at the petrol stations now and other places?
is that legal to do that?
It is, but
it's cost
we
recovery.
have to. Yeah, it'd be a service charge, but it would be a fee. But that's part of we'd have to look into Prop 218. I know some cities have charges that with their water bills. If someone wants to pay the credit card, they can charge a service charge on that. And there's been a hit and miss as far as the legality regarding that. So we'd have to research that. We can charge that as a fee for a convenience fee is what some cities have discussed. So we can look into that certainly.
So I have a question in the upcoming capital projects, CIP projects. You don't have the bike ped listed here. We're not done with that.
No. And I think right now in the bike ped, that's just the, we've done part of the class, was it the class 3 that we're doing? But the bike ped has much more coming up. And I think you'll see that in when we start the next fiscal year budget as we go forward.
These are just for the remainder of the current fiscal year, and the reason that's in there is the council asked, what projects at mid-year are we projecting to the end of the fiscal year that have bidding requirements that make them come back to the council versus my authority to approve them. So that's why this is in there with respect to their bidding. The next cycle of class 1, class 2 analysis is a professional service, not a construction contract.
But, you know, I compared what is in our budget, right, for all of these, because these are like the lump sum, the total amount of the project. But what we've got in our 2015-2016 budget, like, well, for the hybrid Ribbon is like $250,000. Are we going to come back with $100,000 increase? I was just going on.
Isn't that the total expense for the beacon?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is the total expense.
Correct.
Right.
It was in our CIP.
Right.
Right, but okay, the Marsh Road retaining wall is 3.3, but we've got budgeted 675. So
Well, that's because there was carryover from previous years. You had budgeted the money previously, and so the amount that's budgeted this year was anticipated to cover the construction.
okay.
And these are cost estimates as we listed in base of our capital, our 5-year implementation, our program. Those could come in higher, and it's just letting you know what the estimates are, and then the bidding process. So at the bid process, when we bring it back, you'll see what the actual cost would be. When right now, like George mentioned, these are just items that are coming up down the pipe.
Yeah, the bike ped, we did $500,000 last year.
Right.
And this year was just 100,000.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Vice Mayor Lumpers, do you have any questions for Robert on the budget?
No, I don't. It's thorough. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
So we need to adopt the attached resolution authorizing the budget amendment for these adjustments. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? So it's been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution for the mid-year budget amendment for fiscal year 2015-2016. All in favor?
Roll call.
Roll call.
Aye.
Aye. Go ahead.
Councilmember DeVillio,
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitmer,
Approved.
Vice Mayor Limpers,
Aye.
Mayor Lewis.
Approved. Okay, so that's approved. So we move on. Nice work. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Great charts.
Yeah.
Great charts.
Okay, item number 18 is from George and Teresa regarding the solicitation of requests for proposals for internet technology services.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of the council, you have the written staff report. You know that we have contract services for IT services from the city of Redwood City. Lately, that's been a little bit challenging. They've had a difficult time recruiting and retaining their IT personnel, so as a result, we have a hard time getting service requests completely filled. So we've been creating this RFP with the help of Councilmember Whitmer, who's provided some input and feedback as we go along. That's what's on your agenda this evening, to approve the IT service RFP to release, and with the hopes that we would have a vendor opportunity to come on board by July 1 to include in the 2016-17 budget.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for staff on this?
What is our budget for the Redwood City map for the IT?
50,000.
And you anticipate this would be in that range, or?
I think it's going to be higher, personally, because they're putting in response times and things like that that we don't have today. So, I mean, it's conceivable that the number would be higher, and then if we needed to de-scope something, we could. But you know, you've got to pay for having Johnny on the spot and telephone support costs with a definite return. Because you know, when everything's down, it's costing the city money.
Any other questions? Councilmember Weiss? Lempres, do you have any questions on this?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay.
I have no questions.
Okay, so we're to approve this, is this a motion?
Yes, to approve the RFP for release.
Can I get a motion to approve the RFP for release? A second? I'll second. Roll call, please. We have a motion and a second.
Councilmember DeGolia?
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss?
Yes.
Councilmember Whitmer?
I abstain since I contributed to it. But I support it.
Vice Mayor Lempres?
Aye.
Mayor Lewis?
Aye. So the motion passes, 4 approved and 1 abstention. Okay, so we're gonna go back to items 12 and 13.
Wait, it's not the Civic Center project that I'm like.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I wanna hear about the wow factor.
It's not there yet.
There you go. There you go.
So it's not there yet.
Is the wow associated with let's get the report?
Okay, so this is a Civic Center project status report, and, Mike, do you know?
Nothing more than what's in the
Nothing
staff
more than
report.
what's in, any questions about it?
Well, yeah, I guess.
Any support about it? Anything positive?
Yeah, I have a lot of positive things about it, but I just had some questions on it. So, so on the wow factor, I guess we're talking about the street appeal, I guess, from Fair Oaks. That's essentially what that was discussed at the meeting. That's really what we're after.
The committee conversation, the CCAC's committee conversation, sort of focused on, it will definitely focused on the Fair Oaks side. The committee kind of felt that they'd seen some significant architecture wow factor with the library. They're starting to see it with the council chambers as that's shaping out. They're certainly seeing it with the civic courtyard as you approach that. That's where you get a nice, feel for what the civic center and courtyard and space is all about. But they're not quite seeing it from the Fair Oaks facade. So they're looking for some enhancements to that facade that either articulate back the administrative side of the building, whether it's the first floor, second floor, the whole section of it, or portions of it. Maybe some faux balcony, some other articulation of the building itself that helps bring attention to that facade more so than what option 1 on your staff report shows.
I just wanted to make sure it had nothing to do with the price. When we saw the price, I didn't want to say, wow.
I haven't seen the price yet.
So, I think that the key thing here on the Civic Center project, and then with regards to the funding and things like that, we all want the facility to be something that we're proud of, that fits into Atherton, and is something that that will stand the test of time for the period of time that we'll need to use it. And so, but at the same time, as we've discussed when we were going over with some of the sustainability stuff, there is some concern that we want to make sure that it's something that in the long term we're going to be able to afford, and I know that the 2 members that are on the committee have been on the committee for a while, and so you guys are very intimate with regards to it, and the rest of us just are kind of on the periphery, and we get a copy of these notes and things like that. But I would hope that maybe a future, maybe a study session, we can get a little bit more in depth into some of these things, and I do have a little concern because when we looked at the sustainability aspects with regards to this, there were some suspense dates that were in the staff report that was just presented a couple months ago, and several of those short-term months have already passed by, and those haven't come back. So I assume that things are sliding a little bit, and so, in construction project, as you all have said many, many times, is that time is money, and there's cost escalation and things like that. So So I do have some concern with continued iterations, you know, from a guy on the outside looking in, but I'd like to better understand some things, you know, so, because I think that the three of us really are very supportive of everything that the committee and yourselves are doing, but we need to, you know, at the end of the day, we all need to have earlier and quicker buy-in, I think, and I think it would make things smoother. And so maybe a closer in discussion in the next couple months, and then also maybe a better projection as to what Atherton now thinks the timing for maybe some growth in the numbers that they're presenting would be good. Put them on a little bit of a timetable. Is they've got to have like sessions and meetings set up, and if we could have like maybe a little more detail, because the number doesn't seem to change largely, and so that's the extent of my discussions on this topic.
So Mike, do you have any questions or comments on this?
My comments would be related to the Ask Now piece of it. It would be very helpful for me to see some kind of plan against which we could measure progress to make sure that things are on track. And beyond that, I got very little to add to what Bill or others have said before.
Okay.
I guess I can also echo everybody's concerns. I mean, this is obviously a budget-driven project, and I know, I'm actually pretty pleased that, where we are, but I'm concerned, on, some of the slight issues that were brought up, because I actually was in the attendance at the last CCAC meeting. I was a fly on the wall, didn't make any comments, but I thought that there was a lot of very positive, solid, good quality, input from the committee at that time. But I mentioned this to George, that I was a little concerned that it didn't seem to me that there was a singular architect accepting ownership of the project. And it seemed like there was a whole bunch of Indians and not one person saying, I accept responsibility for everything. And I think that that's where some of the issues may have come up in design that, for example, like overhangs and eaves, that we've had to send back, you guys, the CCAC group, have had to send back and ask for revisions when in fact, in my opinion, the architect should pick that stuff up. So, part of it is we'll accept responsibility for us allowing the delays, but I think that there has to be some responsibility on the other side, is get on the same page as us. If we, you've got eaves on one side and not eaves on the other, was that an architectural decision? Because it's not anything I've ever seen. So accept responsibility, don't blame us, because each month that goes by costs us money. I know that the issue of, having the wow factor, we do have some limitations because we do have some money issues. How much wow do we put into it? Yet softening the effect, there were a lot of great ideas related to softening the effect, creating a more focal point related to the entry. These are all very positive things that don't cost a lot to do, but realistically, I think that the committee has probably been saying a lot of those things. But there's got to be ways of doing it that, are cheaper. Moving a whole second floor is not a cheap thing to do. And, my concern is if you try to shift a whole floor to create some offset, well, then offset 3 feet, create some softness instead of having flat front. And I know that Councilman DeGoya mentioned he was on the phone, and that was one of his concerns. I echo that concern. I don't think that the flat look is a good look, and I think that softening that look and creating that focal point, and I'm going to use if you have to put a fountain in to get people to that front entry, something's wrong. So, you've got 3 arches in this entryway, which like I said, great idea, but one, maybe put a door in, make it look like that's your entry, there's the door, it's the centerpiece, not a big dollar figure attached to it, but we've created an entry. I was saying this to the city manager, town manager, the last time, I really like the connectivity into this building to the back side of that building. The only thing missing is a few cows and now chickens in the yard, but it looks like it blends in something in a Spanish era.
And a coop.
And a coop, thank you.
I
So,
like free range.
free range. But I think it does have that feel, so it does feel like it's blending, and that's what you guys have done, a tremendous effort on putting that together and taking those considerations in. You know, absolutely. I did learn something from somebody over the past week, and lighting clearly, can impact. I'm on the jail site planning, so San Mateo County jail site planning, and one of the things that they did with just a ton of lighting by opening up and creating these light caps that literally they're going to be reducing their energy bill by a ton. I know it's hard to do in designs like this, but again, I don't think it's an expensive factor, but it's something that will create. You got to be careful because of the type of look, but yet those are all ideas that can save us money in another direction, but yet not expensive to do on the front side of it.
So, Rick? No
Passive
comments?
design.
Passive design, passive
Reduces your
energy.
costs
Yeah.
over the long term of the ownership. It's really a good thing.
Okay.
It's nice knowing that.
Did we get past our winner?
Yeah.
We got him.
No.
Right?
Oh, no.
No, we did.
Yes. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, we did. Okay. So, all right. Thank you very much.
Good.
Okay.
Now you're back to.
Now we're back to 12 and 13. So,
Put the solar panels back on the top.
thank you. Okay, so item number 12 has to do with authorization to issue a request for proposal for the construction management services for the Marsh Road retaining wall repair project. The reason I pulled that, I don't know if anybody else pulled it, was I just wanted to discuss it a little bit and to say that I think this is an excellent idea, but I wanted to kind of understand a little bit what your proposed estimate is. Is it a percentage of the overall cost? Are we looking at, $50,000 or $500,000 number here for this construction management?
Right now, the engineer's estimate, construction-wise, is probably around $3.2 million. Typically for construction management, which is a lot of work, your on-site inspection, and this project is going to be very intensive. If you take a look at 8 to 10%,
Really?
yes,
Okay.
it's because it's pretty much going to be full-time, and there's going to require some specialty testing, type testing.
So 8% of 3.2 million is.
It's about 200. It could be in the neighborhood of 250,000.
Okay. And this would be for a firm or just one person?
No, this would be a company.
A company?
Yes. Typically, when we receive proposals, we will receive it from engineering companies that, because, again, this is going to be construction management, which is a lot of the contract administration, as well as on-site inspectors.
Yeah, it seemed like the scope was pretty broad. Does anybody have any questions on this?
And that's included in the 3.3 million, or that's
No, it's-
not included in the 3.3?
No, that would be in addition to.
It's in addition to.
But we've already allocated that?
No, this is new. This is
not additional.
Right, but this was all part of, it's all part of the total project budget.
This says no fiscal impact.
But it's
So
not
we
the
must have already
3.2.
allocated it.
No, we haven't.
Well, the reason why it says no fiscal impacts at this point is just getting authorization to do a request for proposal. So in
Yeah,
several
once we
months
get
when
it
we come
back,
back,
then they'll
Yeah,
then
so
it'll be.
that's why I wanted to make sure we understood that.
Robert giving us another.
Alright.
So, out of curiosity, can I ask a question on this one? Wouldn't this in essence be the oversight, which would be basically the inspection process for us? Does this eliminate our process in inspecting? And in essence, we're hiring our engineers that are gonna sign off what permits are gonna be issued to have the work done.
Correct.
So that's, in
It's-
essence, what we're doing.
Yes, it's basically gonna be, people who are gonna be monitoring the quality control and adherence to the specifications of the contractor.
Okay.
Similar
And
to the applicant.
do we have limitations as far as on-site requirements? Are they gonna be on that, somebody from the company that we end up going with on-site 24/7?
We're not 24/7, but during construction.
During construction.
Yes.
It's like what we're doing, we're proposing to do with the Atherton Fiber. That Atherton Fiber would hire or pay for a guy to be on our staff that would be there, Johnny on the spot, to
Correct.
approve the things and make the inspections so it doesn't slow down the project.
Correct.
Okay.
It's an important area, yeah.
Mike, do you have any comments on item number 12 that you'd like to make?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. So, okay,
I move that we approve.
yes, I've got a motion.
Is there a second?
Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember DeGolia,
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitmer,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lempress,
Aye.
Mayor Lewis.
Yes. Okay. That passes unanimously. Item number 13, authorize an amendment to the agreement of Vince Cardosa for 2 additional service requests for Marsh Road retaining. I had several people wanting to pull it. You were the first one, Mr. DeGolia.
Well, the reason that I pulled it is that this involves 2 proposals. And the second proposal is the outreach proposal, which I think is good, but it calls for 2 public meetings. I don't think we really need 2 public meetings. I think we could have 1 public meeting and it'll reduce our costs. So
Okay.
That was the same reason I wanted to pull it, and I didn't understand, attend the supplemental planning meeting, I didn't even know if that was necessary as well, and that was, on the second part of the proposal, but, so I'm in favor of.
Because that part of the proposal was for what, 14,000?
Yeah.
13,000?
So you have to go to the first one, and, you know, we should do this one time. We realize it's gonna be an inconvenience to the neighborhood, and we gotta tell people we're gonna do that, but many times when we have a second meeting, it's the same people that comes to the second meeting that went to the first meeting, and then they are frustrated that we haven't taken their comments, or that we couldn't take their comments, or there was nothing we could have done. And so, I agree with you 100%.
Well, I agree. I don't think that the split is gonna be 50-50 debate. It's probably gonna be a third because there's gonna be cost to display stuff. If we go that route, then I suggest that we use that additional fund to help staff, inform people, and cover that side of it instead of giving it to Briggs and Cardozo.
The rationale behind the 2 meetings, and the reason why I think it was called large and small, is that the purpose for the larger meeting was much broader, because we are in conversation with Menlo Park, San Mateo County, Redwood City, Fire Department, CHP, because of the traffic impact. So the idea there was to have a larger community meeting, which would be advertised in a very broad way in all those, with all those jurisdictions. The smaller meeting was really more focused to discuss potential additional neighborhood traffic within streets in Atherton, Holbrook, Palmer. So it would be a much more focused meeting with primarily the Atherton residents who will get impacted because, they will see increases in traffic in their streets. We're going to do things to prevent that, but undoubtedly they are going to see increases in traffic when we're, closing down lanes, etc. So that was the rationale behind it.
Councilmember Lempress, Vice Mayor, would you like to make any comments on this?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
So, yeah, my initial feeling about it would also is that, we kind of do outreach pretty well ourselves, and so I didn't think that we needed to spend $13,000 for somebody to do outreach, but maybe in this scope of project, it would be better to do that.
I would strongly suggest we at least use that to do that. We don't have the resources to handle the kinds of issues that might come up in this particular project.
So that would be penny foolish, town, whatever.
Yeah, now whether we combine it to one meeting, we can do that. To Councilmember Weese's point, you can add a couple, we can work out some funding to do some local community meetings or have a
And how much would
website
we
for
say?
that and those sorts of things. And I also, talking with Councilmember Weese, suggested that maybe we start now and put up a couple of signs on either side of the channel, one for coming into town traffic, one for leaving. It says, hey, this is coming. Here's some hypothetical dates that it might be up there. Here's a number to call. And then once we get the project going, they're going to have official signs up there with more detail.
It should say practice in your route home.
Yeah, practice now.
My husband says he's not gonna go to work anymore. He's just gonna stay.
Well, we haven't decided exactly how it's gonna go, right?
No, that was the construction management. They were the first
Yeah, that's what they were planning.
service request was talking about defining that.
Okay. So, what's the pleasure of the council? Shall we, try to carve this up a little bit, or do you wanna just accept it on its face?
I think that, given the better explanation, the Holbrook Lane people are gonna need to have need to have something. Somebody's gonna have to walk their neighborhood and talk to them and have a neighborhood because they're, so I think maybe we should just.
I think that's who we were focused on when we were thinking about the meetings. We weren't really thinking about the CHP and Menlo Park. I understand, and the schools that it impacts. I understand it will impact them in any sense. And I think that's a much different outreach program. I think we do need a focused outreach. It doesn't include all those parties. It's just our local residents who are going to be directly impacted. I agree with what you said.
So, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the, amendment to the certificate.
Just approve it.
Just approve it as it is, okay?
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second, roll call please.
Councilmember DeGolia?
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss?
Yes.
Councilmember Whitmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lembres?
Aye.
Mayor Lewis?
Yes. Okay, so that does it, right?
Council
So,
reports.
council reports, yeah. Councilmember Whitmer, did his report.
I have an oral report.
I would like to point out that my report, the last two items were forecast to have happened, but they did not happen. They did not happen. The bike ride around did happen, but I was not a part of it due to a family emergency. And of course we had to put the report in, and then after I put the report in, then we got the notification that the CEO of Atherton Fiber said, let's wait until the next month to have the meeting. So anyway.
I have an oral report, which prior to the meeting tonight, I met with Dave Pine, who informed me that 100% of the cities in San Mateo County supported the Peninsula Clean Energy Program. And at those meetings, 100% of the council members in San Mateo County voted for it, which is unprecedented.
Right, okay, so you stole my thunder. I was going to do the whole thing because I was gonna tag on you, right?
Yeah.
Good for you.
Now we go.
Yeah. All right, anybody else have any oral reports?
I just said I was at fire and I was burning up.
Well, thank you, Mike, for calling in and for making your presence known. It was very nice.
Thank you for accommodating me.
You're welcome. And,
Good morning, Mike.
Yeah, have a
Yeah.
nice
Okay.
vacation.
Were you properly dressed for this meeting?
I'm calling you from the future, and it's nice here.